Chapter 18. When Long Yu finished comprehending the art of heaven suppression, he walked towards the second floor of the martial skill pavilion. There were more and more people gathered outside the martial skill pavilion. Not long after, a group of people surrounded a sturdy man wearing a black robe and arrived at the entrance of the martial skill pavilion. This sturdy man's face was as sharp as a knife, and his eyes were unusually sharp, making people want to avoid him. It was obvious that his strength was extraordinary. He brought a group of people to the martial skill pavilion, looked around, and said fiercely, "Go and find out where that brat is. Brother, look, even Feng Yang from the Feng clan is waiting here." It seems that trash is definitely in the martial skill pavilion. Behind the sturdy man was a girl in a red dress with a sinister look on her face. It was Tan Yu who had been taught a lesson by Long Yu. Obviously, this sturdy man was Tan Jian, one of the top 3 inner disciples of the Jinqian clan. Tan Jian looked back at Tan Yu with a doting look on his face. "Don't worry, you heir. That trash dared to injure you. I won't let him go easily. But now, brother is preparing to fight for the first position of the inner disciples. I'm afraid I don't have time to wait for him here." Of course, brother's time is extremely precious. As for that trash, brother can easily send someone to kill him. Tan Yu, who was dressed in a red dress, had eyes filled with hatred as she spoke viciously. That trash Long Yu, he actually scratched her face in public and even kicked her until she was rolling on the ground. In the end, he even broke her leg, causing her to be unable to walk. She will definitely make him pay with his life. At this time, Tan Yu was being carried on a stretcher by 2 of Tan Jian's followers. Tan Jian originally wanted Tan Yu to rest in peace, but she insisted on seeing Long Yu being tortured, so she asked her followers to carry her over. "Feng Kong, come out!" Tan Jian shouted, and suddenly, a skinny young man in a blue robe walked out. It was one of his followers, Feng Kong. "Brother Tan, just tell me if you need anything." Feng Kang's face was black, but his eyes flashed with determination. His muscles bulged, showing his extraordinary strength. "Now that you've stepped into the 6th stage of the martial path, dealing with that trash of the 4th stage shouldn't be a problem, right?" Tan Jian said lightly. "Senior brother Tan, don't worry. Feng Kong, will definitely defeat that brat." Feng Kang's face revealed a look of confidence. Asking him, an expert at the 6th stage of the martial Dao, to deal with the 4th stage of the martial Dao was simply a piece of cake. It was even like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. However, you don't have to rush to make a move. Give the Feng clan some face and let Feng Yang make a move first. Tan Jian glanced at Feng Yang, who was resting with his eyes closed, and said to Feng Kong, "Yes." Feng Kong nodded in agreement. Tan Jian exchanged a few more words with Tan Yu before he turned around and left. Obviously, his time was limited. Becoming the top disciple of the inner court was not an easy task. If he wanted to achieve it, he would have to put in a lot more effort than others. Outside the martial skill pavilion, Feng Yang was quietly waiting for Long Yu to appear. He wanted to challenge Long Yu to prove his strength. Tan Yu, Feng Kong, and the others were also waiting for Long Yu to come out. They wanted to teach Long Yu a lesson. Unknowingly, more than 100 Jinqian clan outer disciples had gathered outside the martial arts pavilion to watch the show. Inside the martial skill pavilion on the 2nd floor, Long Yu finally stepped onto the 1st floor and began to choose a martial skill for battle. He had just comprehended the heavens suppressing tactic. Once he comprehended it, it would automatically circulate and accelerate the absorption of heaven and earth spiritual qi. Therefore, he did not need to spend too much time on it. All he needed to do was to comprehend the intent. But now, the only thing that could increase Long Yu's strength was obviously a martial skill for battle. On the 2nd floor of the martial skill pavilion, there were already many outer disciples choosing martial skills. When they saw Long Yu enter, no one paid any attention to him. Body refining, movement skill, defense, sword skill, spear skill. Long Yu walked around on the 2nd floor of the martial skill pavilion and roughly understood the classification of martial skills. The martial skills on the 2nd floor were freely chosen by the outer disciples. Soon, he stopped in front of the bookshelf of body refining martial skills. Almost no one in the Jintian clan was willing to cultivate body refining martial skills. Firstly, it was difficult to cultivate body refining martial skills. Even if it was successfully cultivated, it would not have a strong attack power and could only be beaten up. Most people did not like it. Secondly, if one wanted to defend, it was better to cultivate defense martial skills. It was easier to cultivate than body refining martial skills and had better defensive effects. Because of this, there was no one else but Long Yu in the body refining martial skills section. But to Long Yu, he urgently needed to cultivate a body refining martial skill. Because if he cultivated a body refining martial skill, his physique would be strengthened and it would be easier for him to bear the burden of activating the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal. The 9 Underworld Dragon Seal now could increase his strength by 10,000 gene. Its effect was better than high-rank attack martial skills. Not to mention, the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal might evolve further in the future. Because there were not many people who cultivated it, there were not many body refining martial skills. At a glance, Long Yu only saw a few books on the bookshelf. Most of them were middle-rank martial skills, and there was only one high-rank martial skill. Like elixirs, martial skills were divided into low, middle, high, and so on. The martial skills on the second floor of the Jintian clan martial skill pavilion were mostly middle-rank martial skills. There are also a few high-rank martial skills. Demon subduing tyrant body. Long Yu took a look at the high-rank body refining martial skill. Only high-rank martial skills that few people cultivated would be placed on the second floor of the martial skill pavilion for outer disciples to cultivate. For example, the more popular sword skills and body refining martial skills. If one wanted to cultivate high-rank martial skills, they would only be able to get them when they were promoted to inner disciple. Demon subduing tyrant body uses celestial chi to temper the body and strengthen the physique. Cultivating it to small success will double the body's resistance. Cultivating it to large success will double it again. At the same time, it can also strengthen the body's basic strength to a certain extent, allowing other martial skills to be more powerful. Long Yu took a look at the introduction of Demon subduing tyrant body. He pondered for a while and decided to choose this body refining martial skill. Although the Demon subduing tyrant body was abnormally painful to cultivate and required celestial chi to temper the body, allowing every part of the body to be tempered and reconstructed, Long Yu could definitely endure such pain. After taking the secret manual of Demon subduing tyrant body, Long Yu took another round and came to the other side of the body refining martial skill that was more popular. There are many people who chose the body refining martial skill. To any martial cultivator, speed was very important and no one would neglect it. Blink Wind Step, isn't this the middle rank martial skill that Wu Qing cultivated? Long Yu quickly saw the words Blink Wind Step written on a secret manual. Thinking of Wu Qing's speed when he used Blink Wind Step, Long Yu took this secret manual. 2 martial skills were enough for the time being. Any more would be impossible to comprehend in a short time. As for attacking methods, Long Yu had the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal to increase his strength, so he did not particularly need it. He would wait until he had mastered Demon subduing tyrant body and Blink Wind Step. Long Yu took the 2 martial skill manuals and registered them on the second floor of the martial skill pavilion. He then brought the secret manuals back to the first floor and prepared to find the room where he comprehended the heaven suppression art. Demon subduing tyrant body is actually a body refining martial skill. When he came to the first floor of the martial skill pavilion, the old voice sounded again. There was a hint of surprise in the tone, obviously not expecting Long Yu to choose a body refining martial skill. That's good too. If you can achieve great success in a body refining martial skill, the effect will be obvious. The path of martial skill cultivation is divided into beginner, small success, great success, peak, and so on. If you can achieve the beginner level of Demon subduing tyrant body today, it will be considered not bad. Only beginner level of Demon subduing tyrant body, Long Yu thought in his heart. Naturally, he was not satisfied with this result. The martial skill pavilion would close at midnight every day. Before that, Long you must comprehend demon, subduing tyrant body, and blink wind step to a certain extent. Otherwise, the chance of winning against Feng Yang outside the martial skill pavilion was not high. Entering the room, Long Yu felt the mental cultivation method of the heaven suppression art on the stone wall and began to look through the cultivation method of demon, subduing tyrant body. He did not waste any time. The Xian-Qi in a martial cultivator's body is transformed from the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. It is the foundation of any martial skill. If I want to cultivate demon, subduing tyrant body, I must use Xian-Qi to nourish and refine every inch of my meridians so that the endurance of my meridians will be greatly increased. Long Yu thought in his heart. He began to activate the Xian-Qi in his meridians according to the method recorded in Demon, Subduing Tyrant Body. Soon, he felt pain and itchiness in his meridians, as if there were countless insects gnawing on his meridians. Long Yu did not say a word. He knew that this was a kind of tempering of his meridians. After this tempering, his meridians would be more resilient than before. Thus, they would be able to withstand the great power after the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal was activated. The pain and itchiness in his meridians were increasing every moment. Gradually, beads of sweat appeared on Long Yu's forehead, and his whole body began to tremble. Even he, who was at the beginner level of demon, subduing tyrant body, almost couldn't bear it. If it was someone else, such as a young girl like Tanyu, it would be impossible for them to bear the constant pain and itchiness in their meridians. The key was that this pain and itchiness spread all over their body, and there was no way to stop it. They could only endure it. This kind of cultivation method made most of the disciples of the Zhentian clan abandon it. Moreover, even if they successfully cultivated demon, subduing tyrant body, and tempered their meridians, there would not be any significant improvement in their combat power. This was the most criticized part of the method. Only a special case like Long Yu would want to cultivate a body-refining martial skill. 2 hours, 4 hours. Long Yu persisted in enduring the pain in his meridians. Finally, it was close to evening when he completed the tempering of his meridians. It's done. Long Yu's whole body relaxed. Sweat had already soaked his whole body. Only now did he realize that during the process of tempering his meridians, the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal had become a little hot. It seems that the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal also has an effect on the speed of my martial skill cultivation, Long Yu thought to himself. He opened his eyes, stood up, and clenched his fists. He realized that when he entered the beginner level of demon, subduing tyrant body, his original strength of 4,000 Jin had increased to 800 Jin. It seemed that cultivating this body-refining martial skill was quite useful. Immediately after, he tried to activate the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal. 10,000 Jin of strength instantly flowed into his meridians that had been tempered. This time, he realized that it was much easier to bear than before. Now, I will activate the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal and obtain 10,000 Jin of strength. It won't be a problem for me to maintain it for the time it takes for 2 incense sticks to burn. Long Yu felt relieved. The time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn was more than twice as long as before. In this way, he was more confident in his battle with Feng Yang. Chapter 19. While Long Yu was cultivating in the martial skill pavilion, the people outside the martial skill pavilion were getting impatient. How long does that kid want to hide in the martial skill pavilion? Does he think that senior brother Feng and junior sister Tan will give up? He's probably trying to comprehend a martial skill. However, it's only a day. No matter how talented he is, he won't be able to comprehend a powerful martial skill. That's right. When he comes out, with Feng Yang and Fong Kong watching, that kid won't be able to escape. Everyone was discussing among themselves. Some people even deliberately let Feng Yang and Tanyu hear them, in order to prevent them from getting impatient and leaving. Wouldn't that be a good show? Feng Yang raised his head, glanced at the surroundings, and snorted. His patience was better than what everyone thought. Although he had a fiery temper, he obviously wouldn't let it go at the critical moment. Tanyu hated Long Yu to the bone, so it was impossible for her to leave without waiting for him. Fong Kong, watch carefully. I'll make that trash suffer a fate worse than death. Tanyu gritted her teeth and said while lying on the stretcher. Fong Kong, who was sitting quietly to the side, smiled disdainfully. Junior Sister Tan, don't worry. What can that fourth-stage martial path kid do? That's for the best. Otherwise, you won't be able to explain yourself in front of my brother. Tanyu said hatefully. She remembered the scene of Han Jian being defeated by Long Yu this morning. At that time, she and Han Jian also thought that Long Yu was a trash. Who would have thought that he would be able to defeat both of them? However, Fong Kong was now in the sixth stage of the martial path. No matter how heaven-defying that trash was, it was impossible for him to cross two stages to defeat Fong Kong. The only thing they had to worry about was whether that guy would play some tricks or seek help from the sect elders. Of course, the sect elders rarely cared about the private fights between outer disciples. As long as no one died, it was usually fine. Even if Long Yu went to seek help from the outer sect elders, it shouldn't be a big deal. The sun set and night quickly fell. However, the enthusiasm of the hundreds of people outside the martial skill pavilion did not extinguish. Instead, it became more and more lively. Within the martial skill pavilion, Long Yu began practicing flash wind step. When he first stepped into the Heaven Suppression Canyon, his opponent, Wu Qing, had executed the blink wind step. Now that Long Yu had read the introduction of the blink wind step, he knew that Wu Qing had only cultivated the blink wind step to minor completion, allowing his body to move as light as the wind. If the flash wind step was cultivated to the large success stage, he would be able to traverse a distance of 3 zhang in an instant. If he used it for a sneak attack, it would be impossible to defend against. However, now that Long Yu only had half a night left, it was impossible for him to cultivate the flickering wind step to the large success stage. As long as I can cultivate the blink wind step to the small success stage, I will be able to become as light as the wind, and my running speed will increase by more than 50%. It should be enough to deal with Feng Yang. Long Yu pondered as he carefully observed the cultivation method of the flickering wind steps. Very quickly, according to the records in the secret manual, he circulated the qi in his body through a special route through the meridians of his body. Not long after, he felt that his body seemed to have become lighter. The next key point is the pace. As Long Yu thought to himself, he felt the qi circulating in his body rhythmically, and he couldn't help but sigh at the wonders of this world's xian qi and martial skills. Different circulation routes of xian qi would result in completely different effects, allowing this world to give birth to thousands of powerful martial skills, and even controlling the laws of heaven and earth. After sighing, Long Yu began to cultivate, and the 9 nether dragon mark on his chest started to heat up, affecting the xian qi in his body. It actually secretly coordinated with the flash wind step, allowing him to comprehend the flash wind step at a much faster speed. Another 4 hours passed, and Long Yu opened his eyes and stood up. Success, flash wind step beginner. With a thought, the xian qi in Long Yu's body started to circulate, making his body much lighter. As he ran around the room, his speed was indeed 20 to 30% faster than before. Still not enough. As a mid-grade martial skill, the flash wind step will only have a qualitative effect when it reaches the small success stage. After Long Yu ran 2 laps to familiarize himself, he stopped and continued to meditate. And his speed of comprehension shocked the martial skill pavilion elder who was secretly observing him. This kid's comprehension ability is actually so extraordinary. The demon-vanquishing tyrant body and the flash wind step were both comprehended by him in 4 hours. This speed is simply unheard of in the history of the Jintian clan. Let's see if he can improve further tonight. Under the secret observation of the martial skill pavilion elder, Long Yu continued to meditate all the way until midnight. As a mid-grade martial skill, the flash wind step was considered a very basic martial skill in the Jintian clan, so the difficulty of comprehending it was not too high. Many outer sect disciples could easily cultivate it to the small success stage. However, in the entire history of the Jintian clan, there had never been a person who could cultivate the flash wind step to the small success stage in just 1 night. The changes in the dragon mark of the 9 underworlds on Long Yu's chest allowed him to comprehend martial skills at a much faster speed than ordinary people. This was because the dragon mark of the 9 underworlds could actually help the xian qi in his body to circulate according to the path of the martial skill. Based on this alone, he was destined to shock the martial skill pavilion elder. Flash wind step, small success stage. Long Yu stood up again, feeling that his body was as light as the wind. The xian qi in his body flowed, and as long as he condensed the xian qi in his legs, he could increase his speed by more than 50%. Moreover, the flash wind step did not consume too much xian qi, so it could be maintained during a battle. No wonder body-type martial skills are more popular than attack and defense-type martial skills. Whether it's chasing or escaping, body-type martial skills are essential. To a martial cultivator of the heavenly mandate continent, what was the most important? Of course, it was life. Compared to attack and defense-type martial skills, body-type martial skills were obviously more effective in preserving one's life. He had just learned the Demon Exorcist body and achieved small success stage in body type, flash wind step. The martial skill pavilion was about to close. Long Yu felt that it was about time, so he stood up and left the room, stepping out of the martial skill pavilion. Long Yu did not need to think with his knees to know that Feng Yang was waiting for him outside the martial skill pavilion, and there might be others. However, he was not afraid. He had been looking forward to this moment for a long time. Feng Yang, you took away my identity token and treated me like trash. Let me see if you are really that strong. Long Yu thought to himself as he quickly stepped out of the martial skill pavilion. However, he did not hear an old voice in the martial skill pavilion murmur with satisfaction. This young man is extremely talented. It seems that the Jintian clan will soon have another strong cultivator to compete with the other geniuses in the Tang Empire. The moonlight was like a silver veil, and the shadows of the trees were mottled. In the open space outside the martial skill pavilion, more than 100 Jintian clan disciples had gathered, each looking for a place to watch a good show. At midnight, most of the disciples in the martial skill pavilion had already left. When Long Yu came out, his lonely figure looked especially desolate under the moonlight. When he appeared, the atmosphere outside the martial skill pavilion immediately changed. Look, that kid has finally come out. His footsteps are light, and he seems to have comprehended some body-type martial skill. He really came out. He really made us wait. I hope he is not so scared that he kneels down and begs for mercy. Otherwise, we will have waited for nothing today. Even if he kneels down and begs for mercy, will Junior's sister Tanya let him go? The crowd was in a heated discussion. Most of the gazes that swept towards Long Yu were filled with disdain and contempt. They all felt that this kid did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He had just joined the Jintian clan and was already so arrogant. They needed to teach him a lesson. However, they had never thought that Long Yu would be forced into the situation he was in. And now, the person who forced him was right in front of him. Feng Yang, I'm out. Long Yu stepped out of the martial skill pavilion and immediately found the tall Feng Yang in the crowd. His eyes were indifferent as he said this. Trash, you really dare to come out. Feng Yang stood up and looked at Long Yu with disdain. Now, I'll let you know how wrong it was for a trash like you to challenge me to a battle. Wrong is right. Besides, do you have a Qinghua pill with you? Long Yu waved his hand and changed the topic. Qinghua pill. You really want a Qinghua pill? Feng Yang smiled with disdain. Could it be that this trash, Long Yu, really wanted to defeat him? That was simply wishful thinking. Hey. A promise is a promise. You are a man. You can't go back on your words. At this moment, a petite figure jumped out from the side. It was Liao Lele who had run away earlier. However, Liao Lele was wearing a gray robe. It didn't look like the uniform issued by the Jintian clan. Furthermore, she was carrying a cloth bag on her back. She was dressed like she was about to run away. When Long Yu saw this, he couldn't help but smirk. Liao Lele, are you prepared to run away from the Jintian clan after I lose? Liao Lele turned around and stared at him. Nonsense. How could I, Liao Lele, be the kind of person who doesn't abide by a promise? I was thinking that if you lost, I would bring my luggage and move to live with that fat pig. Fat pig. When Feng Yang heard this, his face turned green. This stinky girl actually called him a fat pig. How hateful. However, when he saw Liao Leilei's attire, how could he not know what this stinky girl was planning? Trash Long Yu. When you lose, this stinky girl won't be able to run away even if she wants to. In order to prevent you from saying that I don't abide by the rules, I will bring the Qinghua pill with me. If you have the ability, come and take it. Chapter 20. When Long Yu walked out of the martial skill pavilion, the show was about to begin. Liao Leilei retreated a few steps. His eyes widened as he stared fixedly at the two of them. He shouted, Long Yu, you can do it. Junior sister, I think you're wasting your time. Behind Liao Leilei, an outer sect disciple smiled disdainfully. Everyone knows that every month, the outer sect council member is someone who is about to become an inner sect disciple. In other words, Feng Yang's strength is definitely at the top of the outer sect disciples. There's no way that Long Yu is Feng Yang's match. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Rumble. Liao Leilei snorted. Someone said that he's definitely not Tan Yu and Han Jian's match. What about now? Hearing this, the outer disciple snorted coldly and looked at Liao Leilei and Long Yu with disdain. On the other hand, Tan Yu, who was lying on the stretcher, glared daggers at Liao Leilei as if her eyes were about to burst into flames. That damned woman, how dare she look down on me? I'll make her pay, Tan Yu said in a vicious tone. Fong Kong, who was sitting beside her, said, Junior Sister Tan, let's deal with that trash Long Yu first before we deal with that woman. Humph. Tan Yu did not say another word. Fong Kang's words were still a bit of a deterrent to her. After all, Fong Kong was also an expert who was about to become an inner disciple. In the arena, on the empty ground outside the martial skill pavilion, Feng Yang stared at Long Yu calmly with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Trash! Did you comprehend some super martial skill in the martial skill pavilion and have the confidence to face me? Whether you have comprehended a transcendent martial skill or not, why don't you try it yourself? Let's do it. Long Yu smiled disdainfully and hooked his finger at Feng Yang. This action was extremely disdainful, causing Feng Yang's face to gradually darken. He took a step forward and ruthlessly said, Trash, you will not be able to leave this place standing tonight. As he took a step forward, a circle of ripples appeared in the air, and the distance between him and Long Yu was closed in the blink of an eye. It's the void, jolting movement technique. With one look, Long Yu immediately knew what Feng Yang's movement technique was. It was the vibrating air movement technique. He had seen it in the martial skill pavilion earlier. It was the same as the flash wind step, a medial grade martial technique. However, the principles behind these two movement techniques were different. The flash wind step allowed one's body to become as light as the wind, thus increasing one's speed. However, the vibrating space movement technique shook the air to create ripples, using the ripples to propel one's body. At the beginner and minor mastery stages, the effects of the two movement techniques were not much different. However, at the major mastery stage, it was completely different. The flash wind step at the large success stage allowed one to cross a distance of 3 zhang in an instant, increasing one's speed to the limit. On the other hand, the vibrating air movement technique at the large success stage could greatly vibrate the air, suppressing the movements of the surrounding enemies. As an expert who was about to be promoted to an inner disciple, Feng Yang had long since comprehended the vibrating air movement technique to the large success stage. His figure moved, and the air ripples spread out, instantly enveloping Long Yu. Suddenly, the waves of air ripples made it difficult for Long Yu to breathe. The power of a martial technique that had been cultivated to the large success stage was completely different. 9 Underworld Dragon Seal, open. With a thought, Long Yu immediately let the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal on his chest heat up. 10,000 genes of strength flowed through the black lines into his body. If Long Yu didn't activate the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal, it would be almost impossible for him to fight against Feng Yang, who was at the 5th stage of the martial Tao and had comprehended a large success stage martial technique. In the next moment, Feng Yang's figure had already arrived in front of Long Yu along with the vibrating air ripples. Coiling dragon leg. First coiling dragon leg. Feng Yang's eyes revealed a ruthless look. His 2 legs were like a coiling dragon, condensing tyrannical Xianxi inner strength as he attacked Long Yu. It was another large success stage martial technique, coiling dragon leg. Heaven-suppressing concept suppress. Long Yu gritted his teeth, and the heaven-suppressing concept surged out, slightly suppressing Feng Yang's power. Then he punched out at Feng Yang's legs. The demon vanquishing tyrant body increased his basic strength. At this moment, his punch had a strength of nearly 20,000 genes, which was the strength of 20 horses. A fist and a pair of legs collided with a loud bang. The powerful Xianxi inner strength exploded into a cyclone that spread out to the surroundings. Immediately, dust flew into the sky, blocking the line of sight of many people under the moonlight. Long Yu felt an intense pain from his fist. Using his bare fist to collide with the large success stage martial technique, coiling dragon leg, he was naturally at a disadvantage. However, with the Xianxi inner strength condensed on his fist, as well as the similar level of strength between them, he did not suffer any serious injuries in this exchange. Feng Yang was forced back 2 steps by Long Yu's punch. Instantly, his face turned green and purple. This trash actually had the power to force him back? And what was that power that suddenly blocked his movement? Why did it make him feel a kind of heaven-suppressing aura, just like when he was in the heaven-suppressing canyon? As he pondered, Long Yu's figure suddenly moved in the flying dust, turning into a light breeze and disappeared from Feng Yang's eyes. Small success stage, a flash wind step? Feng Yang was not prepared and suddenly lost his target. His face revealed a look of surprise. He did not expect that in just a day, this trash Long Yu could actually cultivate flash wind step to the small success stage. Thump, thump, thump. A series of heavy footsteps came from his left, causing him to be on guard. His legs curled up like a coiling dragon and swept to the left. However, in the next moment, he found that his legs had swept empty air. Long Yu had deliberately created footsteps on his left and then directly fled. A heavy punch came from Feng Yang's right, and his legs had not yet retracted, so there was no way for him to dodge. Bang! Feng Yang's shoulder was ruthlessly hit by Long Yu's punch, causing him to lose his balance. His whole body staggered, and he continuously retreated a few steps. Fortunately, he had condensed Xianxi inner strength in his shoulder at the critical moment, or else this punch would have crippled his arm. Feeling the numbness in his shoulder, Feng Yang's scalp tingled. He could not understand it, no matter how he thought about it. Long Yu was clearly a trash in the 4th stage of the martial path, so how could he be stronger than him? The 5th stage of the martial path only had the strength of 16 horses, but the trash Long Yu actually had the strength of nearly 20 horses, suppressing Feng Yang in terms of strength. There was a difference of more than 3,000 pounds between the two. The advantage brought by Feng Yang's great success, martial technique, suddenly disappeared. It's time to end this. The corner of Long Yu's mouth slightly curled up. He did not stop at all, and in the next moment, he heavily attacked Feng Yang's back. I was waiting for this. Feng Yang was not an idiot. He was already prepared. His legs coiled like a dragon, and he once again used the sky-shaking movement technique. He turned around and swept his 2 legs, one to block Long Yu's attack, and the other straight at Long Yu's head. Dodge! Seeing this, Long Yu's figure moved like a light breeze. He floated back and randomly changed direction to continue attacking. Although Feng Yang's sky-shaking movement technique had reached great success, and he could use the ripples in the air to obstruct Long Yu's movements, but Long Yu's heaven-suppressing art had a stronger effect on Feng Yang. Under this situation, Feng Yang gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Greetings, Elder. Just as the two were in a stalemate, a clear female voice came from the side of the crowd. This female voice immediately attracted the attention of many people. The people who were originally focused on the battle between Long Yu and Feng Yang looked around, trying to find the figure of the so-called elder. Even Feng Yang's heart trembled when he heard this. Not good. If the elder finds out that I'm holding the outer disciple's identity token, wouldn't it be terrible? Feng Yang panicked a little as he swept his gaze across the surroundings. Only Long Yu was completely unmoved. In his eyes, only Feng Yang was his opponent. Seeing Feng Yang start to look around, Long Yu knew that victory was not far from him. Heaven's suppressing art. Kill. The aura spread out, completely enveloping Feng Yang. Then, Long Yu used Flash Wind Step, quickly punching and kicking at Feng Yang's body. Each attack came from an extremely tricky angle. Not to mention Feng Yang's chaotic state of mind. Even if he was fully focused, it would be difficult to completely block it. In the next moment, Feng Yang didn't even have time to react before a rain of punches and kicks landed on his body. Bang, 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 bang. Countless consecutive attacks, condensed with the strength of 20 horses. Feng Yang couldn't resist at all. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out, heavily falling to the ground. Feng Yang's fall caused the entire audience to fall silent. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. In such a short period of time, Long Yu had won? Wasn't Feng Yang at the peak of the 5th stage of the martial path? He was actually defeated by a kid at the 4th stage of the martial path. Furthermore, he was seriously injured and unconscious. This completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Well done, you really won. A cheer came from the female voice that said, "Greetings, elder." Then, a lively figure wearing a gray robe suddenly jumped into the arena and ran to the side of the heavily injured Feng Yang. This figure, who else could it be but Liao Lele? Just now, her "Greetings, elder" directly disturbed Feng Yang's mind, allowing Long Yu to win in one fell swoop and heavily injure Feng Yang. At this moment, Liao Lele came to the side of the unconscious Feng Yang. She stretched out her hand and searched his clothes a few times. Soon, she took out an identity token and a small, exquisite jade bottle. Seeing these two items, a satisfied smile appeared on Liao Lele's delicate face. The Qinghua pill is here. Long Yu catch. After Liao Lele put away her identity token, she threw the small jade bottle to the nearby Long Yu. Long Yu reached out to catch it and opened it. Sure enough, an intoxicating medicinal fragrance wafted out. It was a mid-grade pill, the Qinghua pill. But before he could relax, a sneer came from the side. Colluding with each other, you have an unfair advantage. Tonight, I, Feng Kong, will make you reveal your true colors and avenge junior brother Feng Yang. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw a thin young man wearing a blue robe walking over from Tan Yu's side. Chapter 21. When Long Yu defeated Feng Yang, everyone was stunned on the spot. They never thought that Long Yu would be stronger than Feng Yang. When Feng Kong stood up and walked into the field, everyone once again focused their attention. Defeating Feng Yang could be said to be an accident, and Liao Lele's "Greetings, elder" had a great impact on the entire battle. But facing Feng Kong, they wanted to see what Long Yu could do. Long Yu looked at the dark-skinned youth Feng Kong and couldn't help but smile. So it's senior brother Feng Kong. I've heard of your name for a long time. It's my honor to meet you now. Feng Kong heard this. Although he was very disdainful of Long Yu, he couldn't help but feel a little smug. This Long Yu had only entered the sect for 2 days, and he had already heard of Feng Kang's name. So, Feng Kong was already very famous? Thinking about it, Feng Kong was only 20 years old this year, and he had already stepped into the 6th stage of the martial Dao. In a month, he would be able to represent the Jintian clan in the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest. Such an achievement was enough for him to be proud of. It's useless no matter what you say today. Senior brother Tan Jian wants me to teach you a lesson. You can't escape. Feng Kang's face was a little proud as he glanced at Long Yu and said, It's only right to teach me a lesson." Long Yu followed the meaning of his words and said with a smile, "After all, senior brother Feng Kong is magnanimous and upright. He is a role model for new disciples like us." "That's right. Fong Kong snorted lightly. He was very proud. So, I believe that with senior brother Fong Kang's character, he won't take advantage of a new disciple like me, right? Long Yu suddenly changed the topic and suddenly said, right now, I'm only at the 4th stage of the martial Tao, but senior brother is at the 6th stage. Although it's right for senior brother to teach me a lesson, I'm afraid it will cause people to gossip. Senior brother definitely won't be willing. Why don't senior brother Fong Kong let me absorb the Qinghua pill here? At that time, I'll let senior brother teach me a lesson and others won't gossip. How about it? Liao Lele finally heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. She thought that Long Yu was trying to plead for mercy from Fong Kong. She didn't expect him to consume the Qinghua pill just to buy some time. As for the surrounding onlookers, they were all shocked. They didn't expect Long Yu to say such a thing. It seemed that Long Yu also knew that he was not Fong Kang's opponent. However, even if he absorbed all the Qinghua pills here, he might not be able to break through the martial arts realm, right? At that time, he would still be taught a lesson by Fong Kong. Fong Kong had the same mentality, so when he heard Long Yu's words, a look of disdain immediately appeared on his face. The Qinghua pill is a pill that the sect rewards to the outer sect directors, and its effects are extraordinary. However, if you want to rely on this to advance to the 5th stage of the martial Tao, it's impossible. So what if I, Fong Kong, wait 2 hours for you? Due to Long Yu's compliments, Fong Kong couldn't be too hasty in order to maintain his magnanimous and upright image. In any case, Long Yu wasn't his opponent, so what was there to be afraid of? Tan Yu, who was on the stretcher, saw this, and her pretty face revealed hatred. However, she couldn't say much to Fong Kong. As long as Fong Kong could help her teach Long Yu a lesson in the end, it was fine. Tonight, I, Tan Yu, will definitely step on your trash's face and hear you call me Grand Aunt. Tan Yu's eyes flashed with hatred as she stared at Long Yu. Long Yu didn't care about Tan Yu at all. A defeated opponent wasn't worthy of his attention. After hearing Fong Kang's agreement, Long Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He then sat cross-legged on the field and swallowed the Qinghua pill that emitted a medicinal fragrance. As a mid-grade pill, the Qinghua pill was extremely rare. It would be a lie to say that the outer sect disciples present weren't tempted. However, within the sect, they naturally couldn't use force to snatch. It was one thing for Long Yu to win according to the agreement, but if they were to use force to snatch, it would be another matter. The sect wouldn't let them off lightly. Seeing Long Yu swallow the Qinghua pill, many people had a look of pity in their eyes. Such a good pill was going to be wasted by such a new disciple. Long Yu had offended Tan Jian. Even if he could advance to the 5th stage of the martial Tao, even if he could defeat Fong Kong, so what? In the end, he would still be killed by Tan Jian. Wouldn't the Qinghua pill be wasted? What's more, Long Yu definitely wouldn't be able to pass Fong Kang's test. Liao Lele's delicate figure stood in front of Long Yu. She vigilantly scanned the surrounding people to ensure that no one would disturb him while he was absorbing the pill. According to reason, Liao Lele had completed the bet with Feng Yang and obtained the identity token. Long Yu's matter no longer had anything to do with her. However, she couldn't leave Long Yu alone. Even if this would make her an enemy of Tan Jian, she wouldn't retreat in the slightest. After the Qinghua pill entered his stomach, Long Yu immediately felt the medicinal energy spread through his body. He didn't hesitate and directly activated the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal, preparing to use it to absorb the medicinal energy. After all, the situation was urgent. Fong Kong also said that he would only give him 2 hours. Within these 2 hours, he had to completely absorb the medicinal energy of the Qinghua pill. Fortunately, the Yuyao pill I took before still has some residual medicinal energy preserved by the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal. Coupled with this Qinghua pill, which is even more effective than the Yuyao pill, I still have hope of advancing to the 5th level of the martial Tao. As Long Yu thought to himself, the heaven and earth spirit qi contained in the Qinghua pill was gradually converted into profound energy and absorbed by his meridians. At this moment, he discovered that after learning the demon subduing tyrant body, The speed at which he absorbed the medicinal energy of the pill was much faster. The root cause was that his meridians were thicker, so he wouldn't encounter too much resistance when his profound energy grew stronger. An hour later, Long Yu's strength soared. His strength had finally risen to the limit of the fourth level of the martial Tao, 10,000 Jin. At this time, he had only absorbed 30% of the heaven and earth spirit qi in the Qinghua pill. Immediately after, the medicinal energy of the 9 underworld dragon seal began to be transmitted into his body, causing the profound energy in his meridians to surge violently. The airflow around his body formed an invisible vortex. As if sensing the movement around Long Yu's body, many people stared at him in surprise and began to discuss among themselves. Could it be that this kid could really absorb a Qinghua pill in advance? Of course, even if that was the case, these people wouldn't be too surprised. After all, they didn't know that Long Yu had only stepped into the fourth level of the martial Tao not long ago. 2 hours passed quickly as they waited. At the last moment, Long Yu finally absorbed all the medicinal energy of the 9 underworld dragon seal. His entire aura suddenly changed. His whole body emitted an explosive sound, making him feel as if he had been reborn. The 5th level of the martial Tao has finally arrived. Long Yu opened his eyes, which flashed with a bright light. At the 5th level of the martial Tao, he had the strength of 16 horses. With a casual punch, he could smash a boulder, and with a casual grab, he could uproot an old tree that was 10 feet tall. Oh, he actually advanced. Fong Kong was sitting quietly at the side. At this time, he opened his eyes and saw that Long Yu's aura was different from before. Of course, he knew that he had advanced to the 5th level of the martial Tao. But even so, Fong Kong wasn't worried. He was at the 6th level of the martial Tao and had the strength of 32 horses. His strength was twice as strong as Long Yu. Not to mention that his martial arts had reached the realm of great success. In any case, Long Yu was no match for him. It was a pity that Feng Yang was just knocked out by Long Yu. Otherwise, Fong Kong might know that Long Yu's strength was not as little as it seemed on the surface. You advanced? Liao Lele looked back and saw the change in Long Yu's aura. He couldn't help but be happy. Then he flashed to the side and said, "Then do your best. Don't lose." When Long Yu heard this, he nodded. Of course, he knew that it was this delicate girl who had been guarding him for the past 2 hours. He couldn't help but feel a little touched. In a heavenly mandate continent, except for Feng Chang'e, no one had been so good to him. Now, there is no reason for you to escape. Fong Kong walked over. His tanned face had a teasing smile. But as a senior, I will let you have 3 moves, lest people say that I am bullying the weak. Thank you, senior brother. Long Yu smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. Since Fong Kong wanted to let him have 3 moves, he would make 3 moves first. He only hoped that Fong Kong wouldn't regret it when the time came. In the next moment, Long Yu's figure turned into a light wind and quickly approached Fong Kong. First move. Long Yu quickly approached and gathered the strength of 16 horses on his fist. He punched at Fong Kang's head. Humph! Seeing this, Fong Kong sneered. He casually raised his hand, and more than 30,000 pounds of strength blocked Long Yu's fist. Even though Long Yu was fierce, under the great strength of the 6th level of the martial Tao, he couldn't advance even an inch. Second move, Dragon Seal of the 9 Underworlds, activate. Long Yu took 2 steps back, and his eyes flashed with determination. He attacked again. His 5th level of the martial Tao had 16,000 pounds of strength, and with the addition of the Dragon Seal of the 9 Underworlds, it was 26,000 pounds. Even if it wasn't as strong as Fong Kong, it was still much stronger than the first punch. This punch carried an unparalleled gust of wind, like an instantaneous gust of wind towards Fong Kang's face. Oh, what kind of martial art is this? It can actually increase your strength by so much. Fong Kong felt the power contained in Long Yu's punch. He was slightly surprised, but he didn't pay much attention to it. The bulging muscles on his body trembled, and more than 30,000 pounds of strength gathered in his palm. With a casual wave of his hand, Long Yu's fist was knocked askew. The two figures brushed past each other. Fong Kong took a step back, but he was unharmed. Next, the third move. A cold light flashed in Long Yu's eyes. His figure flashed, and he disappeared from the spot. This time, it wasn't because he was fast, but because he had comprehended the wind flash step to the greater success stage. In a blink of an eye, he could cross 30 feet. Heaven suppressing intent. The power of the state enveloped him. Although Fong Kong reacted warily, his body's speed could not keep up. Long Yu's fist appeared at the side of Fong Kong and suddenly smashed over from a blind spot of his vision. The ferocious power instantly hit Fong Kang's weak waist. Fong Kong didn't expect to be hit at this spot. He didn't even have time to gather his profound chi. When he was hit by Long Yu's punch, he let out a blood-curdling scream and was sent flying like a kite with its string cut. 3 moves. Long Yu accurately grasped Fong Kang's mentality. In a last move, he suddenly burst forth with a greater success stage wind flash step. In a blink of an eye, he took a step forward and launched a sneak attack. Bang! Fong Kang's skinny body fell to the ground, directly losing consciousness. Long Yu's punch landed on his waist, which was completely defenseless, causing him to suffer even heavier injuries than Fong Yang. Fong Kong was afraid that he would have to lie in bed for several months. Greater success, greater success. Long Yu, how did you comprehend the greater success stage of wind flash step so quickly? Liao Lele, who was standing at the side, was completely stunned. He couldn't help but ask after a long time. When Long Yu heard this, he smiled lightly but didn't explain. In fact, he didn't need 2 hours to absorb the Qinghua elixir. He used the 2 hours just now to comprehend the wind flash step. Because in the battle with Fong Yang, he had used the flash wind step in actual combat. In addition, he had seen Fong Yang's sky tremor movement technique, which had reached the large success realm. Thus, he had a better understanding of the movement technique and the use of profound chi. With the 9 underworld dragon seals effect, he finally comprehended the wind flash step to the greater success stage in the past 2 hours. The whole place was silent. Everyone stared at the scene with their mouths agape. Fong Kong, a 6th-rank martial path expert who was about to become an inner disciple, was actually defeated by a guy who had just joined the sect for 2 days. If this was told to them in the past, they would never believe it. But now, the truth was right in front of them, and they had no choice but to believe it. Everyone no longer looked at Long Yu with disdain in their gazes. Instead, they were filled with admiration and shock. In this world, people would always worship the strong. Long Yu had used his own efforts to prove his strength, defeating Fong Kong, causing everyone to have a whole new level of respect for him. Under the night sky, there was no sound. Only the sound of the leaves rustling in the wind entered the ears of the crowd. Until pa. Suddenly, a series of applause came from the darkness. It was especially eye-catching in the silent night. Everyone, including Long Yu, looked towards the source of the applause. All of them were stunned on the spot. It was him. Chapter 22. When the gentleman, dressed in white, stepped into the arena with a smile on his face, everyone was captivated by his elegant demeanor. Feng Yun, a core disciple of the Jintian clan, almost everyone present recognized him. Who would have thought that tonight's matter would even alarm Feng Yun? It seemed like this long you would not be able to escape this calamity. Everyone knew that Feng Yun and Feng Yang were from the same clan. Now that Long Yu had severely injured Feng Yang, Feng Yun would definitely not let Long Yu off easily. In the crowd, Tan Yu, who was on the stretcher, carefully stared at Feng Yun and could not help but blush. Of course, she recognized Feng Yun's identity. Tan Jian once told her that Feng Yun was currently in the top 10 of the Jintian clan's core disciples. Furthermore, he was handsome and would definitely be the future head of the Feng clan in Jade Pass City. Now that she saw him in person, Tan Yu immediately felt that her brother's words were not false. This Feng Yun was indeed handsome, and if she could hook up with him and pull him into the Tan clan's camp. Tan Yu was having a sweet dream when a crisp female voice interrupted her thoughts. This man is really handsome. Hey, Long Yu, do you know him? Otherwise, why would he be clapping for you? Liao Lele stared at Feng Yun with a look of fondness. Why don't you introduce him to me? At least I didn't give you the Qinghua pill in vain. I also want to introduce him to you, but unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with him. Long Yu said indifferently and raised his head to look at Feng Yun. Feng Yun maintained his smile and chuckled when he heard Long Yu's words. Cousin, you actually said that we're not familiar with each other. You're really treating me like an outsider. But your martial arts progress so quickly, it's really out of my expectations. As he spoke, he stood 3 feet away from Long Yu and turned his head to look at Feng Yang, who was lying on the ground. The smile on his face gradually disappeared. But, cousin, for you to be so heavy-handed against a brother of the same clan, aren't you looking down on the Feng clan? These words were filled with killing intent, accompanied by a sharp glare directed at Long Yu, causing the atmosphere in the area to instantly become tense. This guy changes his face faster than flipping a book. Liao Lele naturally sensed that the newcomer was not friendly, and his heart sank. Although she did not know who Feng Yun was, from Feng Yun's words and the surrounding atmosphere, she knew that this person was not someone that Feng Yang and Feng Kong could compare to. She only knew that the person in front of her was from the Feng clan and seemed to be Long Yu's cousin. Everyone was well aware of Long Yu's identity. He was the foster son of the Feng family's head in Jade Pass City. Hence, Feng Yun's words did not cause the surrounding crowd to feel strange. They knew that Long Yu was going to be in big trouble this time. Feng clan, Long Yu was facing the wind and clouds, but he still maintained his aura and sneered. You want me to put the Feng clan in my eyes? Give me a reason. Has the Feng clan ever put me in their eyes? In the clan, you crippled one of my little brother's legs. Feng Yun closed his eyes and said indifferently, Are you changing the topic? Long Yu gave a disdainful smile. Feng Yun had entered the Jintian clan a long time ago and was now 24 or 25 years old. Last year, he was already at the 7th stage of the martial path. The current Feng Yun had stepped into the top 10 of the Jintian clan's core disciples, and his strength was even stronger than Feng Chang'e. Facing Feng Yun, Long Yu knew that he had no chance of winning in terms of martial strength, so he could only try to use words to overcome this difficulty. However, Feng Yun did not seem to fall for this. His white robe fluttered as he suddenly opened his eyes. I don't want to pursue who is right and who is wrong, but since you crippled one of my little brother's legs, I will take revenge for him tonight. Just as he finished speaking, Long Yu felt a terrifying aura descend from the sky, enveloping him. This aura was exactly the same as the heaven-suppressing intent that he had comprehended. In fact, it was even stronger than the intent he had comprehended, and it was even closer to the suppression of the laws of heaven and earth. Under this tyrannical aura, Long Yu could not move at all. He could only allow himself to be trampled on. This is the intent comprehended by an expert. This feeling of being meat on someone else's chopping block is really unpleasant. Long Yu gritted his teeth, and even if he used all his strength, there was no room for resistance. Liao Lele, who was beside him, was the same. In just a moment, beads of sweat appeared on their faces, and it was obvious that they were enduring an extremely terrifying pressure. As for Feng Yun, who was 30 feet away from the two of them, he had a domineering smile on his face as he raised his right hand and waved it heavily. Sky wave traversal. These 4 words were uttered one by one, and then a white light wave condensed from Xian Qi flew out of Feng Yun's hand. Xian Qi release. Long Yu's eyes widened, and he stared at the Xian Qi light wave, only to see it cross a distance of 30 feet in an instant and suddenly penetrate his right leg. Boom! Blood splattered everywhere, and Long Yu clenched his teeth tightly, feeling the intense pain from his right leg, and he almost fainted from the pain. Feng Yun's strength was too terrifying. A casual release of his aura had rendered Long Yu immobile, and a casual martial skill had pierced through one of Long Yu's legs. However, even though this was the case, Long Yu did not fall down. He used his remaining leg to support his straight back. This scene caused Liao Lele to be visibly moved. Is this Long Yu still human? He's actually able to endure the pain of his right leg being penetrated by profound energy. Most importantly, this fellow's leg is broken, yet he's still able to stand? Not only Liao Lei, but even the surrounding people, including Feng Yun, were slightly surprised. Your willpower is not bad. Feng Yun exuded a domineering aura and walked towards Long Yu. Next, it's time to avenge my cousin, Feng Yang. His gaze was fixed on Long Yu's chest, and it was obvious that it was the place where he would attack. Perhaps it was because it wasn't easy to control the power of a martial technique that could release Xian Qi. Feng Yun walked over and approached Long Yu. Their eyes met. "You're not satisfied?" Feng Yun's eyes were filled with mockery. Long Yu clenched his teeth and did not say a word, but his mind was quickly thinking. For now, other than the martial skill Pavilion Elder, I can only place my hopes on the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal. The 9 Underworld Dragon Seal is on my chest, and Feng Yun wants to attack my chest. I want to see if Feng Yun or the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal is stronger. Long Yu is in a desperate situation, but he still thought calmly. The Jinqian clan strictly forbade their disciples from killing each other, and the current Feng Yun would definitely not dare to kill him in front of the martial skill Pavilion Elder. But Long Yu was naturally unwilling to let Feng Yun continue to be arrogant like this. Long Yu puffed out his chest, unyielding. "Interesting." Feng Yun laughed disdainfully. "I will make sure you remember the lesson you received tonight for the rest of your life." As his voice fell, he was finally ready to attack. His palm gathered the strength of 30 horses and aimed directly at Long Yu's chest. Bang! A heavy explosion sounded, and when Feng Yun's palm imprinted on Long Yu's chest, a powerful Xian Qi immediately invaded his body. And at this time, the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal on Long Yu's chest finally felt the invasion of an external force and instantly awakened. A mysterious force that seemed to come from the ancient times suddenly exploded from the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal. In an instant, Feng Yun's entire body was sent flying. This scene caused the hundreds of Jintian clan disciples to widen their eyes and simply could not believe what they saw. Feng Yun, one of the top 10 core disciples, had struck the trash, Long Yu's chest, and was actually sent flying? How is this possible? If Long Yu was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, he would not have allowed Feng Yun to cripple his right leg. What was going on? In the next moment, Feng Yun's body fell heavily to the ground, landing not far from Feng Yang. His white robe was instantly covered in dust, and he looked extremely battered. Cough, cough. Feng Yun coughed once and raised his head with bloodshot eyes. He did not dare to believe that a trash like Long Yu could actually send him flying. Although he did not suffer any serious injuries, he had lost a lot of face. Most importantly, he did not know what had happened. However, when he raised his head to look, he saw that Long Yu had already fallen to the ground, as if he had fainted, and the gray-clothed girl was shouting Long Yu's name, as if she was rather anxious. Long Yu, how are you? Are you all right?" Liao Lei was lying on Long Yu's chest, his face full of panic. However, Long Yu's eyes were tightly shut, and his entire body was motionless, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. If it were not for his breathing and heartbeat, Liao Lei would have thought that he was already dead. After all, Feng Yun's strength was too strong. Although he did not know how he had been sent flying, Long Yu must have been seriously injured after receiving such a blow. "Give it up, Feng Yun." At this moment, an old voice sighed, and everyone felt their vision blur. An old man in a black robe had already appeared next to Long Yu. "Elder Yu." Feng Yun saw this and knew that he no longer had a chance. But how could he lose his face today? Furthermore, how could he let go of the secret behind how Long Yu was able to send him flying? Unfortunately, the guardian of the martial arts pavilion, Elder Yu, had appeared. No matter what, he could not do anything to Long Yu. It seemed like he could only plan for the future. "Feng Yun, although you are a core disciple of the Jintian clan, you cannot act recklessly. The path of the martial arts has no end. With your talent, you should work hard to climb to the top and not be obsessed with personal vengeance." Elder Yu's voice was not loud, but it echoed throughout the entire area, causing everyone's heart to skip a beat, as if they had understood something. That's right, the path of the martial arts has no end. To think that they would stay here for an entire day just for the sake of some entertainment. What a waste. This disciple understands. Farewell. Feng Yin heard this and spoke reluctantly. He stared deeply at Long Yu on the ground before turning around and leaving. Just as he turned around, he suddenly felt a strange energy surge within his body, making him want to vomit blood. But in order to maintain his face, he forcefully endured it. What kind of energy is that? Could it be that it was transferred from that trash's body? Feng Yun's face sank. He did not dare to stay any longer and hurriedly left. Seeing Feng Yun leaving in a hurry, the rest knew that there was no show to watch. Furthermore, Elder Yu's words made them feel regret. It was better for them to return to their cultivation. Bring him along and follow me. The voice of the black-robed Elder Yu entered Liao Leilei's ears. Liao Leilei hurriedly nodded her head. Yes, Elder. Liao Leilei might be a young girl, but she was also in the 4th stage of the martial path. She had the strength of 4,000 kilograms, so it was not a problem for her to carry Long Yu. The night sky was filled with twinkling stars. The black-robed Elder Yu brought the two of them to the entrance of the Jinqian clan. It seemed like their destination was the Heaven Suppression Canyon. A good show seemed to have come to an end just like that. However, no one knew that Long Yu was currently immersed in a primordial chaotic memory. Chapter 23. In a desolate and boundless chaotic world, heavenly lightning dazzled the eyes, earthly flames raged, and destructive energy filled the entire space. Shenwu World. During the age of old, the flames of war spread everywhere. Long Yu felt himself standing in this ancient and vast world. Shenwu World, Shenwu World. Could it be the world I'm in was called Shenwu World in the age of old? Long Yu opened his eyes wide, but couldn't see the scene in front of him any clearer. He knew that this was only a memory that entered his mind from the 9 underworld dragon seal. This world was too vast. At first, Long Yu could only see the destructive power of destruction, but not a single living being. After an unknown amount of time, a black ripple appeared in the sky far away, quickly becoming bigger and bigger in his eyes. It was a gigantic black monster flying towards him from the horizon. Although he couldn't see its shape, Long Yu knew exactly what it was. 9 underworld dragon. Long Yu nervously looked over, only to see the 9 underworld dragon's shadow blotting out the sky. Wherever it went, the black ripple would destroy the space around it. The power of destruction was many times stronger than any other power in this space. He was the sole ruler of this world. Like an emperor looking down on the world, wherever the 9 underworld dragon went, even space itself would be ignited by the black flames, forming black lotuses that wouldn't go out for a long time. As the 9 underworld dragon soared in the sky, the entire world seemed to be covered in black clouds. But not too long after, a divine light suddenly descended and struck the 9 underworld dragon's body. That divine light seemed to be able to stop both time and space. Even the powerful 9 underworld dragon couldn't stop it. Finally, the 9 underworld dragon that was like a ruler was punished by the divine light, fell into the depths of Shenwu World, and was sealed away. After an unknown amount of time, Shenwu World once again regained its vitality. Long Yu had always been floating at the location where the 9 underworld's dragon had fallen. After countless years, this location had become a towering valley that reached into the clouds. The valley was filled with the remnants of the 9 underworld's dragon's power, causing the surrounding mountain walls to be imprinted with mysterious and profound black patterns. In the valley, people gradually appeared, and a tribe began to form. The people of this tribe called themselves the descendants of the dragon. This was because the divine dragon black markings on the mountain walls allowed the people of this tribe to possess great power. As long as they carved the 9 underworld's dragon mark on their chest, they could borrow the power of the primordial 9 underworld's dragon. No one in the tribe knew why they could borrow the power of the dragon of the 9 underworlds, But in this world where martial arts were respected, only by possessing great power would one be able to gain a foothold in this world. Thus, gradually, no one in the tribe tried to find out the reason, and carving the dragon mark of the 9 underworlds on their chests became their most ancient tradition. The dragon seal of the 9 underworlds was not a dragon of the 9 underworlds when it was first carved. It was just an ordinary dragon-shaped mark. This dragon-shaped mark possessed 9 transformations. With each transformation, its power would increase tenfold. The first change was to awaken the dragon-shaped mark into the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds. So that's how it is. When I'm at the 4th stage of the martial Tao, I can make the first transformation of the dragon seal awaken and activate, and I can increase my strength by 10,000 gene. And the next transformation will be at the 8th stage of the martial Tao. Once activated, I can increase my strength by 100,000 gene. At the same time, I can use the innate skill of the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds. It's actually so terrifying. Long Yu carefully observed the lives of the people in the tribe and quickly figured out some of the rules of the growth of the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds. However, any memories related to the 8th stage of the martial Tao and above were blurry in Long Yu's eyes. It was obvious that with his current cultivation, he was still unable to pry into the high level of memories. After going through these memories, Long Yu knew that his choice of a body refining martial skill was the right one. Because in that tribe, in order to allow their bodies to withstand the power of the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds, every one of them had cultivated a body refining martial skill since they were young. Their skin and flesh were like steel, their tendons and bones were like iron, and they were impervious to water and fire and invulnerable to swords and spears. The memories gradually became blurry at this point. Long Yu saw through some secrets. However, an even greater doubt arose in the bottom of his heart. The people of that tribe called themselves the descendant of the dragon. What was the relationship between them and his previous life? Why would he, Long Yu, be engraved with the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds after his death and come to this world? These questions were far from being answered. The memories became blurry and gradually dissipated. At the last moment, Long Yu seemed to see a beautiful woman wearing a white veil. She was noble, but also illusory and blurry. The beautiful woman looked at him from an extremely distant place. Her entire body could not be seen clearly. Only her pair of beautiful eyes were as clear as a mirror, and her pair of slender hands seemed to have just retreated from Long Yu's chest. Consort you. Consort you. These 2 words suddenly appeared in Long Yu's heart. It seemed to come from the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds, but it also seemed like it wasn't. The dragon seal of the 9 underworlds on my body, was it engraved by this woman called Consort Yu? But who is she? Why did she engrave the dragon seal of the 9 underworlds on me? The scene in front of Long Yu gradually became blurry and soon turned into darkness. Whether it was the dragon of the 9 underworlds, the descendant of the dragon tribe, or the beautiful woman called Consort Yu, they all disappeared without a trace in front of him, as if they had never appeared. All of a sudden, Long Yu opened his eyes. "Ah, you're awake?" A crisp female voice suddenly sounded, as if she was shocked by Long Yu. Hearing this, Long Yu remembered that it was the voice of the delicate girl, Liao Lele. He focused his eyes and saw that he was lying on a bamboo bed, and Liao Lele was wringing a towel, as if she was wiping his body. "What are you doing?" Long Yu looked at Liao Lele with vigilance. "What do you think I'm doing?" Seeing the vigilance in Long Yu's eyes, Liao Lele glared at him. "Your leg was pierced by Feng Yun's move. If it wasn't for Elder Bai's miraculous medicine and me taking care of it day and night, your leg would have been crippled." Only then did Long Yu realize that she was wiping the wound on his knee, and the wound was indeed almost healed. He raised his head and looked around. He realized that he was in a bamboo house with a quiet and secluded environment. He had no idea where he was. "Where is this?" Long Yu asked. "This is where Elder Bai and Elder He live, the peak of the Heaven Suppression Canyon," Liao Lele casually answered. "Elder Bai and Elder He?" Long Yu was slightly confused. Before he fainted at the entrance of the martial skill pavilion, He vaguely heard Feng Yun refer to the elder of the martial skill pavilion as Elder Yu. Where did Elder Bai and Elder He come from? The guardian elder of the Jintian clan is a good friend of Elder Yu of the martial skill pavilion. Liao Lele explained. Hearing this, Long Yu nodded. He then thought of something and asked, How long have I been unconscious? It's been half a month. I thought you were dead. Liao Lele lightly harumphed. Although her tone wasn't very good, Long Yu could hear a trace of concern in her voice. He couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth. He smiled and didn't say anything. He sat up and found that he didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, he seemed to be more energetic after lying down for half a month. The injury on his right leg that was pierced by Feng Yun had basically healed, and it would no longer hinder his movements. You're awake. I'll call the two elders in. Seeing that Long Yu had stood up, Liao Lele did not say anything and left the bamboo house. Long Yu moved his body a little and wanted to stretch, but he suddenly realized that all his clothes had been changed. He couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Who changed my clothes? Elder Bai and Elder He? As guardian elders, it shouldn't be possible. Could it be Liao Lele? No, I have to get to the bottom of this. However, no matter who changed my clothes, the dragon seal of the 9 underworld must have been discovered, right? Just as he was thinking about this, the door of the bamboo house was pushed open and an old man in white entered. Liao Lele followed behind the old man, but did not enter the house. She made a face at Long Yu and turned around to close the door. In the house, only Long Yu and the old man in white were left. Long Yu, you're finally awake. The old man in white walked over without making a sound. He had a kind smile on his face and looked at Long Yu as if he was looking at a good friend. You can call me Elder Bai. After saying this, the old man in white stood beside Long Yu and looked at Long Yu's chest. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat. The dragon seal of the 9 underworld had indeed been discovered. However, the old man in white did not ask any questions. He merely smiled and said, In order to cure your leg, I used a pill of reincarnation. This is a top-grade pill. Apart from me, I'm afraid no one else in the Jintian clan can afford it. Thank you, Elder. On one hand, Long Yu was grateful. On the other hand, he was a little puzzled. Why would Old Bai be willing to use a top-grade elixir to save his leg? Could it be because he discovered his talent, and because of his love for talent, he wanted to take him in as a disciple? Just as he was thinking about this, Elder Bai smiled and said, Young man, don't misunderstand. I saved you not because of you, but because of your father. My father? When Long Yu heard this, he was startled. Could it be that his father knew Old Bai? No, not only do they know each other, they must have a deeper relationship. Otherwise, Elder Bai would not have spent a supreme-grade pill on an ordinary friend. A top-grade pill was 2 levels higher than a top-grade pill. It was needless to say how precious it was. Suddenly, Long Yu remembered that before he came to the Jintian clan, Feng Chang'e had mentioned that his father had an old friend in the Jintian clan. Could it be this Elder Bai? However, it's not convenient for me to say too much about your father. Elder Bai glanced at Long Yu's chest and said, The mark of a dragon on your chest, was it left by your father? Even though I have no idea what it is, I'm sure you will achieve great things in the future. When you are strong enough, you will naturally know about your father. Long Yu casually nodded his head. He thought to himself, although he did not even know who his father was, he was sure that the Azure Dragon mark was definitely not left behind by his father. This was because he clearly remembered that the Azure Dragon mark was not there before he transmigrated. It was definitely a mark that was created when he transmigrated. Moreover, in his blurry memory, the person who carved the dragon mark of the 9 underworld was a beautiful lady, and her name seemed to be Consort Yu. For some reason, Long Yu had a feeling that Consort Yu had nothing to do with any of his relatives in this life. Of course, it was not a bad thing that Elder Bai had automatically linked the dragon mark of the 9 underworld to his father, lest more secrets were revealed. Long Yu was sure that Elder Bai would not know about Consort Yu, the dragon's descendant tribe, and the dragon of the 9 underworld. However, you're quite a tough one, kid. Elder Bai suddenly changed the topic and said with a smile, Do you know how the situation is now? The situation? What happened to him? Chapter 24. Old Bai chuckled when he saw the anticipation on Long Yu's face. He stroked his white beard and said, Feng Yun is one of the top 10 core disciples of our Jinqing clan. He's already in the 8th stage of the martial path. However, thanks to your father, he'll probably have to spend the next 2 months recuperating. Old Bai still believed that the 9 underworld dragon seal was related to Long Yu's father. Long Yu didn't refute him, but he found it strange. Recuperating? That's right. Old Bai smiled faintly. He announced that he'll be in seclusion for more than 2 months, but old fellows like us naturally know that his palms strike against you in the martial skill pavilion was repelled by the energy in your body. At first, we were wondering how a mere 5th stage of the martial path could repel him. However, after knowing your father's identity, it's no longer surprising. That guy must have done something to your body. Long Yu finally knew that Feng Yun had been injured by the 9 underworld dragon seal and had to rest for more than 2 months. It seemed that his injuries weren't light. If I encounter danger in the future, I can attract the other party to attack the 9 underworld dragon seal. However, if I use this trick often, no one will fall for it in the future. Long Yu thought to himself as he sensed his body. He found that his strength was still at the 5th stage of the martial path, 16,000 Jin. The 9 underworld dragon seal could still increase his strength by 10,000 Jin. Everything was the same as before he fainted. By the way, you're currently in the 5th stage of the martial path. There's still half a month before the Imperial Ginseng Forest opens. If you can step into the 6th stage of the martial path within half a month, you'll be qualified to represent the Jintian clan to enter and fight for great opportunities. Old Bai suddenly said with anticipation in his eyes as he looked at Long Yu. Imperial Ginseng Forest? Long Yu was puzzled. He had never heard of such a thing before. There are 7 major sects in the Great Tang Empire, but they're all under the jurisdiction of the Great Tang Imperial Clan. Master Bai explained, the Royal Ginseng Forest is an ancient ginseng forest built by the royal family of the Tang dynasty. There are many wild ancient ginseng growing in the forest, which can help you improve your cultivation. High-quality ancient ginseng is as effective as some high-quality elixirs. Some of the big families in the Great Tang Nation and the 7 great sects take turns to enter. This year, it's our Jintian clan, the Ice School, and the Thousand Thread sects turn to choose their disciples. The Ice Gate. Long Yu's eyes flashed with interest. Wasn't Feng Yao an inner disciple of the Ice sect? In Long Yu's eyes, the 7th-stage martial path genius, Feng Yao, was no longer unreachable. Feng Yao, you try to kill me. I will settle this score sooner or later. Just for this, he definitely couldn't miss this opportunity to enter the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest. Then, Elder Bai told him everything about the Royal Ginseng Forest. 3 sects or families were selected to enter the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest. Those who entered must be under the age of 20 and had reached the 6th stage of the martial path. Otherwise, they were not qualified to enter. This year, there were 16 people in the Jintian clan who could meet this condition. However, because Feng Kong was seriously injured by Long Yu, there were only 15 left. If Long Yu could reach the 6th stage of the martial path in half a month, he could replace Feng Kong and enter the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest. In addition, there were about 50 people, including the disciples of the Ice School and the Thousand Thread sect. In the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest, ginseng was divided into 3 grades: high grade, mid grade, and low grade. Every year, there were no more than 3 high-grade ginseng produced. It was conceivable that the goal of about 50 geniuses every year was to obtain high-grade ginseng. In addition, every few years, there was a chance that a transcendent grade ginseng would appear in the ancient ginseng forest. Its effects were better than high-grade ginseng. If a martial cultivator absorbed the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the forest, it would be equivalent to 2 or 3 years of hard work. The appearance of a transcendent grade ginseng meant that a martial cultivator could directly break through to the next stage. Of course, if there was a bottleneck, it would not be easy to break through to the next stage. For example, from the 6th stage of the martial path to the 7th stage of the martial path, There would be a huge bottleneck if one wanted to release profound chi or inner strength. Ordinary martial cultivators would have to spend a lot of time to break through. As for the transcendent grade ginseng, there was still the supreme grade ginseng. However, the supreme grade ginseng would rarely appear. Every time it appeared, it would be taken by the imperial family of the Tang dynasty. Little guy, it's not convenient for me to help you break through to the 6th stage of the martial path, but I can give you a hint. After Old Bai finished talking about the imperial ancient ginseng forest, he continued, in the heaven-suppressing mountain range, there is a place called the soaring serpent abyss. Many soaring serpent demonic beasts roam there. Outer disciples go there to train, and the effect is not bad. If you can kill a soaring serpent and take its inner core, the effect on your cultivation is no less than a mid-grade elixir. Even if you can gather some spiritual herbs, you can use them directly or refine them into elixirs, which are very beneficial to your cultivation. Regardless of whether it was spiritual herbs, elixirs, or demonic beasts' inner cores, martial cultivators would only take the first one. After that, they would not have much effect. Therefore, every outer disciple of the Jintian clan would go to a place like the Soaring Serpent Abyss at least once to see if they could find a soaring serpent and take its inner core. Once they did, it would be equivalent to obtaining a mid-grade elixir, which would greatly improve their cultivation. I understand. Thank you, Senior. Long Yu said with a smile. Of course, he would take a look at the Soaring Serpent Abyss. If he could obtain a soaring serpent's inner core, even if he couldn't break through to the 6th stage of the martial path, it would still greatly improve his cultivation and bring him closer to the 6th stage of the martial path. Due to the urgency of the matter, Old Bai did not say anything else. Long Yu packed his things and prepared to leave. It was Liao Lele who sent Long Yu off. Not far from the bamboo house, there was a pavilion on a lonely peak. Old Bai and another old man in a black robe were playing chess, completely ignoring the two young people. Liao Lele stopped on the fork of the mountain. Be careful on your way to the Soaring Serpent Abyss. Liao Lele had taken care of Long Yu for half a month, so she was a little reluctant to leave. Aren't you going? Long Yu asked. No. Old Bai accepted me as his disciple, so I'll cultivate here for the time being. Moreover, my cultivation is low, so I'll definitely be a burden to you if I go to the Soaring Serpent Abyss. Liao Lele said with embarrassment. Long Yu suddenly understood. So that's how it is. This girl was actually accepted by Old White as a disciple. She is quite lucky. Old White's cultivation is profound. He has probably already surpassed the 9th stage of the martial Dao and reached another level. With Old Bai as her disciple, Liao Lele would have backer. At least she wouldn't be bullied by a fat pig like Feng Yang. Long Yu turned around and was about to go down the mountain. However, he only took 2 steps before he suddenly stopped and asked without looking back, "By the way, were you the one who helped me change my clothes for the past half a month?" "Yes." Liao Lele's crisp voice came from behind him. "Then, did you see everything?" Long Yu asked again, still not looking back. "Of course." Liao Lele answered again. Long Yu did not say anything more. He quickly went down the mountain and disappeared from Liao Lele's sight. So what if I saw it? However, it's still pretty good. Liao Lele tidied up her hair that was blown by the breeze. She couldn't help but blush. She stood at the fork for a long time until she was sure that Long Yu would not come back. Then, she turned around reluctantly. Long Yu naturally did not know Liao Lele's reaction after he left. At this moment, his thoughts were completely focused on increasing his cultivation. The Soaring Serpent Abyss was a place that he definitely had to go. However, even if he was lucky enough to kill a soaring serpent, just a soaring serpent's inner core would not allow him to step into the 6th stage of the martial path. There's still half a month left. I wonder if there's any other way. Forget it. I'll make a trip to the Soaring Serpent Abyss first. Long Yu made up his mind and walked towards the Soaring Serpent Abyss along the mountain path. The Heaven Suppression mountain range was continuous. Even if one stood on the highest peak of the Heaven Suppression Canyon, they would not be able to see the end of the mountain range. The Soaring Serpent Abyss was about 40 li away from the Jintian clan. Long Yu used Wind Flash along the way. Occasionally, he would bump into a few groups of Jin Tian clan disciples heading towards the soaring serpent abyss. However, no one greeted him, and they all went their own ways. Half an hour later, the soaring serpent abyss appeared in front of Long Yu. It was a gloomy valley with lush trees that almost covered the sky. The area was vast, and even the outer disciples of the Jintian clan only dared to move around the periphery. If they went deeper, they would easily encounter powerful demonic beasts, and even their lives would be at risk. I hope my luck is good, and I'll be able to find a soaring serpent soon. Long Yu stepped into the soaring serpent abyss with hope in his heart. Ordinary soaring serpent demonic beasts were around the 5th stage of the martial path. If he encountered one alone, it would be easy to deal with it. After entering the soaring serpent abyss, Long Yu's vision had decreased significantly. He could only rely on his hearing, smell, and a man's intuition to move through the forest. Other than the possibility of encountering soaring serpent demonic beasts, there were many poisonous grasses and creatures in the soaring serpent abyss. Although they weren't fatal, they could often cause great trouble for martial cultivators who set foot in it. For example, when Long Yu passed by a place, he saw some dense vines that entangled a few Jintian clan disciples. They couldn't escape even if they wanted to, and it would take a lot of time to get rid of those vines. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't pay attention to them. He relied on his keen intuition to quickly pass through the soaring serpent abyss. About 10 miles in, he keenly sensed a trace of blood scent, which made him completely focus his attention. The smell of blood meant that there was a massacre. His heartbeat quickened as he cautiously ran towards the direction where the smell of blood was coming from. Not long after, he faintly heard some people calling for help. Soaring Serpent King, it's the Soaring Serpent King. Help, help. Junior Sister Chin, don't leave me behind, ah. Screams and cries for help rose and fell in the dark forest of the abyss. Chapter 25. A Jintian clan disciple, who was still alive and kicking not long ago, was now in the stomach of the gigantic creature. Not even a speck of him was left. Long Yu cautiously hid at the side. When he looked carefully, he saw that the huge creature was like a cobra that had been magnified countless times. Its entire pitch-black body was at least 10 feet long, and when it raised its head, it was actually 3 feet tall. It was incomparably ferocious. However, there were no eyes or nose on its head, only a giant mouth dripping with venom. This was the mouth that had just swallowed a Jintian clan outer sect disciple. This was the Soaring Serpent King. The Soaring Serpent King's strength is comparable to a 7th stage martial path cultivator. Furthermore, it contains venom and has thick skin. It's extremely difficult to deal with. Long Yu's eyes flashed with shrewdness. However, if I can kill it and obtain its inner core, I will definitely be able to step into the 6th stage of the martial path. The Soaring Serpent King's strength alone was 50 to 60,000 Jin. A casual sweep of its tail could kill Long Yu. In a head-on battle, Long Yu would definitely not be its opponent. It seemed that he had to think of another way. Long Yu carefully observed his surroundings and quietly began to move. In the field, apart from the Soaring Serpent King, there were 4 other Jintian clan outer sect disciples. They were all wearing blue robes, and they were all fleeing in panic. One of the girls ran the fastest. She should be the so-called Junior Sister Chin. However, no matter how fast she ran, she couldn't outrun the Soaring Serpent King. The black gigantic creature rapidly traversed the forest. With a sweep of its tail, the slowest outer sect disciple was sent flying. He crashed heavily into a towering tree and fell to the ground. It seemed that he would not be able to survive. Then, the Soaring Serpent King spat out a mouthful of venom on another outer sect disciple. In an instant, his body began to rot, and he fell to the ground with a scream. Junior Sister Chin! Junior Sister Chin! The last disciple shouted as he ran, as if Junior Sister Chin could save him. Hold on for a while. My brother will be here soon. Junior Sister Chin was also panicking. She only knew how to run for her life. How could she dare to stop? Hold on. The last disciple was in despair. Hold on. Facing the terrifying, soaring Serpent King, what could he use to resist? With his cultivation of the 5th rank of the martial path, he was not even a match for the soaring Serpent King's tail. Sky-shaking movement art. That person used his movement technique with all his might. However, he hadn't entered the sect for long, and his Sky Jolt movement technique had only reached the small success realm. Moreover, even if he had comprehended the Skyquake movement technique, he could not rely on the ripples in the air to obstruct the soaring Serpent King's movements. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Even if he ran with all his might, he still couldn't keep up with the speed of the soaring Serpent King. After a short while, the soaring Serpent King's enormous body charged over and instantly flattened him in the forest. The soaring Serpent King opened its huge mouth and roared furiously at Junior Sister Chin, who was the last. "Don't come over, don't come over. My brother is an expert at the 7th stage of the martial Dao. If you dare touch me, my brother will definitely not let you off." Junior Sister Chin was quite beautiful, but at this moment she was filled with panic. Faced with the soaring Serpent King, who could take her life at any time, she had no choice but to use her brother's identity to try to threaten him. Unfortunately, how could the dignified, soaring Serpent King care about her threats? After crushing the last person besides Junior Sister Chin, the soaring Serpent King swept its tail and struck down a thick, ancient tree nearby. Then, with a loud bang, the fallen ancient tree blocked Junior Martial Sister Chin's escape route. A sharp branch directly pierced into her snow-white thigh, causing her to feel pain and immediately fall to the ground. Huff! The soaring Serpent King spat out a foul breath as it dragged its enormous body towards Junior Sister Chin. In the next moment, it would completely kill Junior Sister Chin. However, at this moment, a huge rock suddenly smashed toward the soaring Serpent King from not far away. The huge rock was about the size of the soaring Serpent King's head and weighed thousands of kilograms. It passed through the dense forest and smashed into the soaring Serpent King's head. With a heavy sound, the soaring Serpent King's entire body was smashed askew. However, the soaring Serpent King began to exert its strength, sending the huge rock flying. It landed on the ground not far away and shattered into pieces. The soaring Serpent King's enormous mouth quickly turned and aimed in the direction of the huge rock. In that direction, about 300 feet away, Long Yu maintained the posture of throwing the huge rock. With his current strength, being able to throw the huge rock that far was already not bad. After all, she is a member of the Jinqing clan. If I can save as many as I can, then it's a pity. Long Yu thought to himself as he calmly observed the soaring Serpent King's movements. Huff! After being smashed by the rock, the soaring Serpent King was abnormally angry. It immediately abandoned Junior Sister Chin, who was just a few feet away, and charged towards Long Yu. When Junior Sister Chin saw this, she panted in fear as she watched the soaring Serpent King being lured away. She felt very fortunate. She tried to get up and escape, but she discovered that her thigh had been pierced by a sharp branch. Blood was gushing out, and it was impossible for her to stand up. She couldn't help but curse silently. Facing the furious soaring Serpent King, Long Yu did not panic. He used Wind Flash Step to retreat. With the current effects of Wind Flash Step, his speed was definitely not comparable to the soaring Serpent King's. However, Long Yu did not want to escape. He wanted to lure the soaring Serpent King into a trap. After a while, the soaring Serpent King was only 200 feet away from Long Yu. However, at that moment, the soaring Serpent King suddenly felt that its feet were entangled by a vine. Immediately, the soaring Serpent King tried to tear off that vine. However, it did not expect that this action would instead alarm a large patch of nearby vines. In an instant, one thick vine after another suddenly curled up and wrapped around the soaring Serpent King's body. Sharp thorns extended from the vines and pierced into the soaring Serpent King's skin, trying to suck his flesh. This type of vine is a plant unique to the soaring Serpent Abyss. It has its own intelligence and is the natural enemy of the soaring serpent demonic beast. It is born to feed on the soaring serpent demonic beast. Long Yu recalled the information that Liao Lele had told him not long ago. He could not help but sigh that the girl was quite diligent. She had even researched the information on this type of vine. If a martial cultivator was entangled by this type of vine, it would at most be a little troublesome and waste a little time. However, if it was the soaring serpent demonic beast that was entangled, it would be the result of having its flesh and blood sucked. The soaring serpent king had underestimated Long Yu. In its anger, it had not thought of Long Yu's plan. It had accidentally fallen into a trap and was instantly trapped in a desperate situation. Whoosh! The soaring serpent king opened its huge mouth and continuously spat out venom. However, its venom was completely useless against its natural enemy, the vines. It could only temporarily stop the vines from entangling it. Very quickly, more vines came to entangle it. The soaring serpent king was a great tonic for these vines. However, the strength of the soaring serpent king was far beyond the vine's imagination. A tearing force of 50,000 to 60,000 kilograms exploded from the soaring serpent king's huge body. The vines that were entangling it were torn apart by the great force and fell to the ground softly. However, there were simply too many vines in the vicinity. Although the soaring serpent king continued to use its great strength to tear apart more and more vines, the wounds on its body also increased and its strength decreased. Both the vines and the soaring serpent king were extremely powerful. As they twisted and turned, they destroyed all the thick ancient trees in the vicinity, creating a messy, empty space. Long Yu hid to the side and observed the situation. After about the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn, the soaring serpent king's strength seemed to have been exhausted. It fell to the ground and fell silent, no longer able to move. Around its body were countless thorny vines. All the vines had been torn apart. It was obvious how terrifying the soaring serpent king's strength was. It seemed like both sides had suffered. Long Yu carefully appeared and walked towards the soaring serpent king's huge body. Soon, he was within 3 feet of the soaring serpent king. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the soaring serpent king's body flipped and its huge mouth opened. A mouthful of thick venom sprayed towards Long Yu. It was actually a sneak attack. If it was someone else who could not dodge in time, they would naturally be poisoned to death by the venom. The soaring serpent king would be the final winner. However, Long Yu maintained a high level of vigilance. A mere soaring serpent king would not be able to sneak an attack on Long Yu. As the venom sprayed towards him, Long Yu's figure immediately flashed. Wind Flash Step. The Wind Flash Step at the Great Completion Realm allowed him to traverse a distance of 3 feet in an instant. In the next moment, he was close to the soaring serpent king's abdomen. Inner core, come out! Long Yu shouted. His hands actually grabbed a few thorny vines and used them as whips towards the soaring serpent king's abdomen. Whoosh! Although the thorny vines were torn apart and lost their vitality, the thorns on the surface were still very powerful. In an instant, the wound on the soaring serpent king's abdomen was enlarged. At the same time, Long Yu's hands, which were grabbing the thorny vines, were also pierced until they were dripping with blood. The pain almost made him lose his grip. However, in order to defeat the soaring serpent king, Long Yu could not care less about the pain in his hands. Right now, other than the thorny vines, he had no other way to break the tough skin of the soaring serpent king's abdomen. He gritted his teeth and forcefully pulled the 2 ends of the thorny vines. Like a flexible sword, he slashed across the soaring serpent king's abdomen. Whoosh! The soaring serpent king roared in agony. Its entire abdomen was completely cut open by Long Yu. The inner core was even taken out by Long Yu and held tightly in his hands. Success! Having succeeded, Long Yu jumped away as fast as he could. Feeling the fist-sized, warm inner core in his hands, as well as the dense heaven and earth spiritual chi within it, he was filled with joy. Even though his hands were covered in blood from the thorny vines and there were countless holes in them, he did not care. As long as he could obtain the inner core, he could step into the sixth stage of the martial path. Behind him, the soaring Serpent King that had lost its inner core collapsed to the ground. In front of Long Yu, the figures of two martial cultivators appeared. One of them was the junior sister Qin he had just saved. At this moment, she was holding onto a tree branch and walking with difficulty. Beside her was a young man in a black robe. He looked to be in his early 20s. From the powerful aura he exuded, it was obvious that his cultivation was extremely high. He had probably reached the seventh stage of the martial path. Big brother, it's him. He stole the soaring Serpent King's inner core. You must help me get it back. Chapter 26. Long Yu could not help but frown when he heard junior sister Qin's words. Snatch the soaring Serpent King's inner core? Help her snatch it back? This junior sister Qin was simply laughable. If not for Long Yu, the soaring Serpent King would have long since killed her. How could she have the chance to point fingers here? Not only did she ignore the debt of saving her life, she even asked someone to help her snatch the inner core from Long Yu's hands. Does she intend to bite the hand that feeds her? Long Yu thought to himself as he carefully observed junior sister Qin and the black-clothed youth. Only then did he feel that the two of them were somewhat familiar. Connecting the dots, Long Yu quickly came to a realization. Jade Pass City, Qin family. It was Qin Rong, and Qin Tianke. Both siblings had joined the Jintian clan. Qin Tianke seemed to be in his early 20s, but he had already reached the seventh stage of the martial path. At the seventh stage of the martial path, he could release his Xian Qi. In terms of battle strength, Long Yu, who was only at the fifth stage of the martial path, was definitely not his match. However, if Long Yu had the time to absorb the soaring Serpent King's inner core and step into the sixth stage of the martial path, then he might have a chance. The black-clothed youth, Qin Tianke, glanced at Long Yu with arrogance in his eyes and said lightly, I am an inner disciple of the Jintian clan, Qin Tianke. If you know what's good for you, hand over the soaring Serpent King's inner core, and you'll be spared physical pain. What a joke. The soaring Serpent King was killed by me, and I even saved your sister's life. Why do you have to make me hand over the inner core? Long Yu laughed disdainfully. Ha ha, what a joke. Qin Tianke laughed heartily. You're just a kid at the fifth stage of the martial path. How could you kill the soaring Serpent King, whose strength is comparable to the seventh stage of the martial path? You clearly used despicable means to snatch the inner core from my sister's hands. Hearing the other party's indiscriminate words, Long Yu's heart turned cold. He looked at junior sister Qin, but Qin Ronger was not moved at all. Her beautiful eyes were completely focused on the inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King. If she could obtain the core, she would be able to step into the sixth stage of the martial path and enter the Imperial Ginseng Forest in half a month. She would never let go of such an opportunity. Even if she had to bite the hand that fed her, she wouldn't hesitate. Moreover, there was no one else in the vicinity. No one would know what her brother and sister had done. Therefore, there was no guilt or uneasiness in her eyes. There was only greed and anticipation. Ronger, don't worry. I will retrieve the inner core of the soaring Serpent King for you. Qin Tianke looked at Qin Ronger dotingly, then turned his head to look at Long Yu. His eyes flashed with a hint of mockery as he said, So, do you want me to do it myself? There's no need to trouble senior brother. I'll leave this soaring Serpent King inner core to you. Long Yu said calmly. He then raised his hand and was about to throw the inner elixir in the direction of Qin Tianke. At least you know what's good for you. Qin Ronger raised her chin proudly, as if she could foresee the scene of Long Yu throwing the inner elixir and then being killed by her brother. Naturally, they wouldn't let Long Yu have the chance to spread the news. However, the next moment, Long Yu raised his hand and threw it, but he didn't throw the inner elixir. Instead, he threw out several vines covered in sharp thorns that wrapped around Qin Tianke. Meanwhile, he himself used wind flash step, turned into a gust of wind, and turned around to run. You asked for it. Seeing that, Qin Tiankei's originally complacent face immediately turned cold. With a wave of his hand, a few cyan-colored profound chi ripples condensed into wind blades, and in an instant they swept out, cutting the thorny vines in midair. Then he moved his feet and used his movement technique, chasing after Long Yu. "Brother, you must get the inner elixir back," Qin Ronger shouted viciously. "Ronger, don't worry," Qin Tiankei said as he operated his celestial chi and used his peak realm movement technique. His running speed was faster than Long Yu's. The movement technique he used was the Jade Gate City's Qin family's middle-grade martial arts technique. Its effect was no worse than wind step. In just half an hour, the distance between the two of them shortened rapidly. Originally, Long Yu took advantage of his unpreparedness to turn around and run away. But very soon, the distance between the two of them was less than 10 feet. 10 feet was the furthest distance that Qin Tiankei could release his celestial chi. Dark windbreak. Qin Tiankei closed the distance and then waved his hand. The powerful green, celestial chi ripples condensed into wind blades again and flew towards the direction that Long Yu escaped. Wind step flash. Just now, Long Yu had managed to stall for some time. He could finally use the flash wind step's flash breath step again. Feeling Qin Tiang's dark wind break approaching, he condensed his celestial chi and his body turned into a light wind. In a flash, he crossed 10 feet away. "Do you think you can run a second time with your wind step at the Mastery Realm?" Qin Tiankei sneered. His figure flashed and quickly caught up. After a moment, he once again condensed the dark wind break and cut through the sky. In the darkness, he attacked Long Yu like a poisonous snake. "Block it for me." Long Yu's figure flashed to the side and immediately hid behind a giant tree. However, the dark windbreak was the Jintian clan's high-grade martial arts technique. Coupled with Qin Tiang's cultivation of the 7th level of the martial Dao, a casual wind blade pierced through the giant tree and cut it apart. Chi! Long Yu's arm was cut, and blood immediately flowed out. However, he did not make a sound, and his running speed did not decrease. "Let's see how long you can run." Qin Tiankei laughed mockingly. Like a cat playing with a mouse, he was playing with Long Yu. In this gloomy, soaring serpent abyss, it was impossible for anyone to know what was happening here. Naturally, Qin Tiankei wanted to destroy Long Yu's corpse. However, the next moment, the smile on Qin Tiang's face suddenly froze. How is this possible? This kid actually... One of them chased, and the other fled. Unknowingly, they had gone around in a circle and returned to the original position. Qin Rong, Er's leg was seriously injured, and it was difficult for her to move. At this time, she was still here with her back facing them. She did not expect that they would go around in a circle and come back. Long Yu ran in front, and a sneer appeared on his face. "Ronger, be careful!" Qin Tiankei immediately shouted. Qin Rong, was currently fantasizing that her brother would help her snatch the inner core back. How could she have expected Long Yu's plan? Before she could react, Long Yu's body turned into a light wind, and with a big stride, he came to Qin Rong's side and grabbed her neck with one hand. Ah! Qin Rong was shocked. Then, she felt a strong force on her neck, which made her feel suffocated, and she could not even make a sound. "Stop!" Long Yu grabbed Qin Rong and turned around to threaten Qin Tiankei. "Let go of Rong, or I will make you die a horrible death." Qin Tiankei was dressed in black and could not be seen clearly in the dark forest. However, one could feel the expression on his face that he was gnashing his teeth. Originally, he thought that victory was in his grasp, but now, Long Yu succeeded and used Qin Rong as a hostage. It was really a miscalculation. One could imagine how much hatred Qin Tiankei had in his heart. "If you take another step forward, the first one to die a horrible death will be your sister," Long Yu said coldly and tightened his grip. Suddenly, Qin Rong felt suffocated and her beautiful eyes rolled up. Even if she wanted to break free from Long Yu's restraint with all her strength, Long Yu had cultivated the demon subduing tyrant body. Compared to her at the same realm, his strength was much greater. At this moment, she was tightly restrained. Do you know what the punishment is for killing your fellow disciples? Qin Tiang's sinister voice came, but his footsteps really stopped. He did not dare to joke around with his sister's life. Shouldn't I be asking you this? Long Yu smiled faintly. Now, take 100 steps back. Otherwise, you will see your sister fall in front of you. Qin Tianke hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still took a step and slowly retreated. Take a bigger step. Long Yu sneered. Dilly-dallying. Are you a woman? These words made Qin Tianke angry, but he could not resist at all. Instead, he could only retreat obediently. As long as I seize the opportunity, boy, you will die without a burial place. Qin Tianke thought viciously in his heart, and the distance between him and Long Yu gradually widened. Qin Tianke, you are an inner disciple, so you must have a combat weapon, right? Now, throw the combat weapon over where you know the consequences. Long Yu continued to say calmly, threatening Qin Tianke with Qin Ronger's life. Boy, don't go too far. You also know that I am an inner disciple, and you are just an outer disciple. There is still a long time ahead. Qin Tiang's cold snort came from afar. Obviously, he was not willing to give in to Long Yu, so he began to threaten Long Yu instead. There is still a long time ahead? Why don't I think so? Where is the combat weapon? Hurry up and throw it over. Long Yu sneered and threatened again, but this time he did not get a response. Qin Tianke did not make any more sound, as if he had disappeared from the dark forest. It seems that in your brother's eyes, you are not as important as a combat weapon. Long Yu said to Qin Rong, or with a hint of disappointment in his words. This sentence made Qin Rong, or feel disappointed. Her brother, Qin Tianke, really did not care about her life and death for a combat weapon. No, definitely not. You don't dare to kill me. Qin Rong, calmed down and said with a light snort. Her brother must know that this kid did not dare to kill her, so he did not throw the combat weapon over. After all, if Long Yu killed her in the soaring snake abyss and the Jintian clan elders heard about it, he would definitely be severely punished, or even expelled from the sect. You still have some brains. Long Yu smiled. But, did your brother run back to the sect to complain? As he said this, he carefully observed the movements around him. In such a dark forest, the perception of the 5th level of the martial Dao was used to the extreme, and he immediately noticed that Qin Tianke was quietly approaching from another direction. Want to sneak attack me? Long Yu sneered in his heart. Perhaps Qin Tianke did not expect that Long Yu would be so calm and observe the surroundings. After all, Long Yu was at the 5th level of the martial Dao, facing Qin Tianke, who was at the 7th level of the martial Dao. His life was on the line. Under such circumstances, most people's hearts would beat faster and they would panic. Then, Long Yu grabbed Qin Rong's neck and began to slowly move. Chapter 27. The dark and damp soaring serpent abyss was filled with giant trees that blocked out the sun. Long Yu clutched Qin Ronger's neck, maintaining a straight line with the soaring Serpent King's corpse and Qin Tianke. The huge body of the soaring Serpent King blocked Qin Tiang's line of sight, making it impossible for him to observe Long Yu. This made Qin Tianke very angry. He was a 7th-stage martial path expert, but now he was being played around by a 5th-stage martial path kid. This made him very unhappy. Are you trying to block my line of sight and escape? Qin Tianke couldn't help but snort when he discovered that Long Yu was hiding in the soaring Serpent King's body. Now, no matter what Long Yu did, he wouldn't be able to escape his hunt. He was the hunter, and Long Yu was just the prey. Of course, this was only what Qin Tianke thought. Suddenly, Qin Ronger cried out in pain, causing Qin Tiang's heart to tighten. No, he had to act quickly. Whoosh! Qin Tiang's figure moved quickly, jumping onto the soaring Serpent King's corpse. Looking down from above, his field of vision suddenly widened. Let go of my sister. If anything happens to her, you'll definitely die. Qin Tianke glanced not far away, where Long Yu was clutching Qin Ronger's neck, causing her to groan in pain. However, When Qin Tianke jumped onto the soaring Serpent King's corpse, Long Yu's lips curled up. "I've taken the bait." Long Yu waved his hand, and the huge rock he had prepared flew towards the soaring Serpent King's corpse. Qin Tiang's expression changed. Before he could even react, the huge rock smashed into the soaring Serpent King's broken abdomen. The terrifying power instantly smashed the internal organs, blood, and other filth in the soaring Serpent King's body, causing them to fly out. Qin Tianke, who had been standing on the soaring Serpent King's corpse, was the first to bear the brunt of the filth. His entire body emitted a terrible stench. "Got it, let's go." Seeing this, Long Yu immediately left Qin Ronger behind, turned around and flew in a certain direction. "Trash, I'll kill you." Qin Tianke had not expected that Long Yu would make such a move. His eyes instantly turned red, filled with hatred. From a moment he stepped onto the path of martial arts. When had he, Qin Tianke, as the genius of the Jade Pass City's Qin clan, been in such a sorry state? He was actually drenched in the blood and guts of the demonic beast. However, when he saw that Long Yu had abandoned Qin Renjur and escaped with the soaring Serpent King's inner core, he could not help but exude a strong, murderous aura. "You will definitely die," Qin Tianke swore in his heart. Then, he patted his body hard to get rid of some particularly smelly filth and jumped to Qin Renjir's side in a flash. "Ronger, I'll take you with me," Qin Tianke said. He would never make the same mistake as before. Qin Renjir nodded silently. Smelling the stench coming from Qin Tiang's body, she couldn't help but frown. It was really too smelly. Qin Tianke saw his sister's expression and his hatred for Long Yu deepened. This trash! How dare he make a fool of himself in front of his sister? He carried Qin Rong in his arms and took a step forward. Once again, he executed his peak realm movement technique and chased after Long Yu. However, with the delay just now, the distance between the two parties was probably hundreds of feet apart. Even with Qin Tiang's speed, it was not something that could be done in a short time to catch up with Long Yu while carrying Qin Renjur. Of course, Long Yu would not run away just like that. That brother and sister had repaid his kindness with enmity. They wanted to steal his inner core and even kill him. How could he not return the favor? At least, Long Yu was determined to get Qin Tiang's combat weapon. Very soon, Long Yu ran a few miles back. Qin Tianke, carrying Qin Renjur, finally caught up with him again and appeared not far behind him. However, at this time, Long Yu had finally arrived at his destination. "Junior brother, help us quickly. Junior brother, help us quickly. We're entangled by vines." Several voices were heard in succession. Long Yu looked up and saw that he had indeed returned to the vicinity of the 3 outer clan disciples who were entangled by vines. "Someone will come to help you soon." The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up slightly as he said casually. He then bypassed them and disappeared into the dark bushes of the forest. The 3 young men looked at each other in disappointment. Someone will come to help them soon? It did not take long for them to understand what Long Yu meant. When they saw Qin Tianke running from behind with Qin Renjir in his arms, they could not help but feel as if they had met their savior. They shouted happily, "Senior brother Qin, junior sister Qin, come and help us quickly." If someone in the same sect was in danger, it was reasonable for others to help. Especially when the 3 young men who were entangled saw that the person who ran over was an inner clan disciple, Qin Tianke. They had even greater hope in their hearts. With the strength of an inner clan disciple, it should be easy for him to cut off these vines, right? "Did you see a junior brother in black passing by here?" Qin Tianke ran over and asked sternly, his body emitting a foul smell. The 3 young men were stunned when they heard his tone. However, what happened next shocked them to their core. They saw that the vines that had entangled them seemed to have sensed the appearance of some food. They actually released them and swept towards Qin Tianke at lightning speed. The 3 young men had not reacted yet, but Qin Tianke was shocked. His body was full of the internal organs of the soaring Serpent King. Could it be that he would attract these vines? Soon, he understood that he had guessed correctly. Not only the vines that entangled the three young men, but even the other hidden vines nearby all moved at this moment. Like a vicious, poisonous snake, they instantly surrounded him. "Take care of my sister." Qin Tianke hurriedly pushed Qin Renjir to the side of the three young men. Then he condensed his qi. Black windbreak. The green qi condensed into a wind blade and instantly cut off several vines. However, the other vines were faster and instantly entangled his body and limbs. Then, sharp thorns spread out on the surface of the vines. Obviously, they regarded Qin Tianke as a soaring serpent demonic beast and wanted to suck his flesh and blood. "Get out of my way!" Qin Tianke roared. At this moment, he finally condensed all the strength in his body and exploded. The fundamental difference between a martial cultivator and a demonic beast was that a martial cultivator could use combat weapons and martial skills. At this time, Qin Tianke finally took out the combat weapon that was rewarded for becoming an inner clan disciple. It was a jade seal that Qin Tianke held tightly in his hand. Activating his qi, a series of sharp wind blades were released from the seal. It was even more powerful than Qin Tianke's black windbreak. The wind blades were like the Grim Reaper's scythe, cutting off all the sharp thorns and vines. If Long Yu were to face these wind blades, he might not even be able to dodge and would be cut into pieces. However, there were too many vines. Even with the soaring Serpent King's huge body, a cluster of vines could completely entangle it, let alone a mere Qin Tianke. Although Qin Tianke cut off the vines faster than the soaring Serpent King, his whole body was still gradually entangled by the vines and covered. Then, the thorns on the vines pierced through his skin. Blood flowed out, and the vines retracted their thorns as if they had seen something disgusting. However, the stinky soaring Serpent King's bodily fluids on Qin Tianke's body was still the favorite of the vines. Both sides were caught in a prolonged battle. The three young men at the side were dumbfounded. However, there was good news. They were saved. "You three, hurry up and chase after him. Don't let that boy in black escape. He has the inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King." Qin Rong, Er's leg was injured and she leaned against a tree. She had no time to care about Qin Tianke. Instead, she hurriedly shouted at the three people, "The inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King." The three people, who had just escaped from the vines, were instantly interested when they heard that. Although they would definitely have to give the inner elixir to Qin Tianke, even if they managed to get it, if they could befriend Qin Tianke and Qin Rong, it would be extremely beneficial for their future development in the sect. At that thought, the three of them looked at each other and chased in the direction where Long Yu had disappeared. Long Yu hid in the bushes in another direction and smirked when he saw that. He knew that the three of them would become Qin Tianke's lackeys. However, it did not matter. The three of them had chased in the wrong direction. When they returned, they would see a shocking scene. He had already crushed the inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King and absorbed all the heaven and earth spiritual qi it contained. The effect of an ordinary soaring serpent beast's inner elixir was equivalent to a middle-grade elixir for martial cultivators. The inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King was equivalent to a superior-grade elixir. As Long Yu absorbed the spiritual qi, he immediately felt a strong, warm current fill his meridians. Under the heaven-defying effects of the 9 Underworld's Dragon Seal, every part of his body was undergoing refinement. The profound energy in his body was rapidly strengthening, and the strength he possessed had also gradually increased from 16,000 kilograms to 18,000 kilograms. This was the limit of the rank 5 martial path. If he wanted to increase it further, he would have to break through to the next realm. Dong, dong, dong. Long Yu's heart beat faster and faster. The celestial qi in his meridians became thicker and thicker. He could clearly feel that he was in the process of transforming. He was becoming more powerful than before. He quickly absorbed the inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King, leaving behind a pile of useless residue. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body. This was a sign that his realm was about to increase. Rank 6 martial path was finally not far away. His movements finally attracted Qin Rong's attention. It had been half an hour since Qin Tianke fought with the vines. With the help of the mysterious wind seal, Qin Tianke had finally cut off all the spiky vines. Correspondingly, the stinky soaring Serpent King's bodily fluid on his body was also a blessing in disguise. The vines had absorbed it. "Brother, there seems to be movement over there." Qin Rong pointed to a dark thicket. Her leg was injured, so she did not dare to investigate. Now that Qin Tianke had defeated the vines, it was time to take a look. The direction she pointed to was the place where Long Yu had hidden and absorbed the inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King. Could it be that the kid is hiding there and secretly absorbing the inner elixir? Qin Tianke could feel the dense spiritual qi in the thicket. There seemed to be signs that a martial cultivator was about to advance. His expression turned cold. The inner elixir of the soaring Serpent King was meant for Qin Rong to increase her cultivation. How could it be used by someone else? Even if your realm has increased, I will still kill you. Chapter 28. Just as Qin Tianke was getting closer and closer, Long Yu, who was in the thicket, finally successfully stepped into the 6th level of the martial Tao. The strength in his body instantly rose. With a wave of his hand, he had a terrifying strength of 32,000 Jin. Coupled with the strengthening brought by the demon's subduing tyrant body, his strength was even stronger than an ordinary 6th-stage martial Tao expert, almost reaching 35,000 Jin. If he activated the 9 Underworld Dragon Seal, his basic strength could increase by another 10,000 Jin, reaching 45,000 Jin. This way, the gap between me and Qin Tianke has narrowed a lot. However, it's still not that easy to deal with him. A cold light flashed in Long Yu's eyes. At this moment, a conversation suddenly came from outside the bushes. Senior Brother Qin, how are you? Are you okay?" It was one of the 3 youths just now. The 3 of them ran in the wrong direction to chase after Long Yu. Of course, they returned without success. However, they were unwilling to give up the opportunity to befriend Qin Tianke, so they ran back. "Of course I'm fine." Qin Tiang's voice came from 20 feet away from Long Yu, allowing Long Yu to roughly know the other party's location. "Junior Sister Qin, what exactly happened just now? Who got the soaring Serpent King's core?" Seeing that Qin Tianke seemed a little cold, another person turned his attention to Qin Rong and asked. When Qin Rong heard this, she snorted lightly. "We don't know who it is either. The forest is too dark, and he hid too well. We didn't see his appearance clearly. We only know that he is an outer disciple at the 5th stage of the martial Tao." Senior Brother Qin also didn't see it clearly, the remaining person said in surprise. Qin Tianke snorted coldly and didn't answer. Clearly, not being able to see Long Yu's face made him feel very embarrassed. What did Long Yu do in his previous life? How could he expose his appearance so easily, and in such a convenient place to hide? It doesn't matter who he is. I only know that he stole my soaring Serpent King's core. Qin Rong said indifferently. When the 3 heard this, they immediately expressed their position. He actually dared to steal Junior Sister Qin's core. He is simply tired of living. Could it be that Junior Sister Qin's leg injury was also caused by that person? This person is so cruel to his fellow disciples. We absolutely cannot let him off lightly. It's good that you know. Later, my brother will deal with him. You guys guard the surroundings. Don't let him escape again. Do you understand? Qin Rong ordered like a young lady. Got it. The 3 of them answered in unison. Long Yu, who was hiding in the bushes, was sneering in his heart. With just a few words, this woman had shaped him into a greedy, evil person. Her vicious thoughts were obvious. The 3 of them swore to kill Long Yu, but they did not know that the real greedy villain was Qin Rong herself. However, even if they knew, they probably wouldn't switch sides, because Qin Tianke was an inner disciple of the Jinqiang clan. Obviously, standing on Qin Tiang's side would be more beneficial to them. Qin Tianke continued to approach the bushes. Of course, even if he was facing a brat at the 5th level of the martial Dao, he would not be arrogant enough to use his face to probe the bushes. The next moment, the first to enter the grass was not Qin Tianke, but the continuous wind blades. Mysterious windbreak. As an expert at the 7th level of the martial Dao, Qin Tianke was able to release his profound qi. Naturally, he would not forget his own advantage. He used a martial skill towards the bushes from afar. Azure wind blades attacked the bushes one after another. Facing these sharp wind blades, it was impossible for Long Yu to hide inside. However, along with the appearance of Long Yu's figure, there was also the thick trunk of a huge tree. Long Yu jumped up from the bushes and kicked a huge tree with a sweep of his leg. Following that, he hugged the huge tree with both hands and smashed it heavily towards Qin Tianke. With Long Yu's 30,000 gene of strength, it was quite difficult for him to lift this huge tree. One could imagine that if this hit Qin Tiang's body, even with his cultivation at the 7th level of the martial Dao, he would probably be injured. Naive, Qin Tianke sneered and instantly used his movement technique. His body flashed, and he dodged the huge tree. Boom! With a loud sound, the sturdy trunk of the big tree heavily smashed into the ground. Long Yu's figure suddenly appeared behind Qin Tianke. Blink wind step, in the blink of an eye, he crossed 3 meters. Long Yu instantly arrived behind Qin Tianke, and the 9 underworld dragon seal was immediately activated. He condensed a 45,000 gene foot and swept towards Qin Tiang's waist. If nothing unexpected happened, this kick would at least injure Qin Tianke. Wong. A layer of translucent green barrier suddenly appeared beside Qin Tianke and actually blocked Long Yu's kick that contained a huge amount of power. Long Yu's expression changed. He was certain that his kick had not been detected by Qin Tianke in advance. Then, how did he condense this azure barrier to block it? Was it a defensive martial skill? This is our Qin family's movement technique, Azure Wind movement technique. After comprehending it to the peak realm, it will automatically form an Azure Wind screen when it is used. Qin Rong sneered from the side. With your strength, don't even think about shattering the Azure Wind screen and harming my brother in the slightest. Following her words, Qin Tianke gave a stern bellow as he turned sideways and threw a heavy punch towards Long Yu. Profound Qi inner strength cover. Long Yu covered his right shoulder with profound Qi inner strength at the fastest speed. Immediately after, he was punched by Qin Tianke, causing his entire body to fly backwards. Long Yu fell to the ground and felt the pain coming from his shoulder. He couldn't help but clench his teeth. Fortunately, when he used the blink step just now, he had a deeper understanding of this movement technique. After half a month, his movement technique seemed to have signs of rushing to the peak. Seeing Long Yu fall to the ground and grit his teeth in pain, Qin Tianke stood proudly, his eyes filled with strong disdain. Kid, even if you step into the 6th level of the martial Dao, you still won't be my match. The difference between the 7th level of the martial Dao and you is like heaven and earth. You're on the ground, and I'm the sky to you. Qin Tianke approached Long Yu step by step, preparing to make the final move. This despicable person stole my sister's inner core of the soaring Serpent King and injured my sister's leg. Now, he actually used the inner core and advanced to the 6th level of the martial Dao. Qin Tianke said indifferently, "Tell me, how should I deal with him?" Qin Rong didn't say anything, but the other 3 immediately said loudly, "This person is despicable and shameless. How can the Jinqiang clan allow such a person to exist? Senior brother Qin, you must kill him and clean up the sect scum." "Clean up the sect," well said. Qin Rong, Er's eyes seemed to be spewing fire. A good inner core of the soaring Serpent King was used by this kid in front of her. It was simply a waste. If not for this, She could have advanced to the 6th level of the martial Dao and entered the imperial ginseng forest in half a month. It's all this person's fault. Brother, you must clean up the sect. Qin Rong, said through gritted teeth. She never thought that her life was saved by Long Yu from the mouth of the soaring Serpent King not long ago. Of course, Qin Tianke puffed out his chest and said proudly, like a god of death in the night, he walked in front of Long Yu and said, with your great success Realm Wind Step, you can only take one step in a short period of time. Now, let's see where you can run to. If you want to kill me, then do it. Long Yu fell to the ground, as if he had thrown caution to the wind. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. Qin Tianke laughed. With the attitude of the final victor, he raised his leg and stomped heavily towards Long Yu. This foot contained the full strength of 64,000 Jin of the 7th level of the martial Dao. It actually brought with it a whistling wind. If it landed, it would definitely be able to trample Long Yu into pieces. And now, Long Yu had been injured by Qin Tianke's heavy punch. He had no chance to dodge at all. In the face of this cruel scene, whether it was Qin Rong or the other 3 Jintian clan outer sect disciples, none of them said a word to stop it. In their eyes, Long Yu was against their own interests, so he deserved to die. Even Qin Rong, eyes revealed a hint of anticipation. This kid had actually used the soaring Serpent King's inner core for himself. Now, it was finally time for him to pay the price. Dying. Qin Tianke let out a fierce roar and stomped down heavily with his foot. A huge force rumbled. Bang! There was a loud bang, and dust flew. However, Long Yu, who was originally under his feet, had turned into an afterimage and gradually disappeared in the wind. What? Qin Tianke couldn't react for a moment and was stunned on the spot. How is this possible? How could this kid only leave an afterimage? Not only Qin Tianke, but Qin Rong, and the other 3 were also stunned. Where did that kid go? They looked around and didn't see Long Yu's figure. They couldn't help being full of doubts. However, at this time, Qin Tianke suddenly felt a whistling wind coming from above his head. His heart trembled slightly. He hurriedly raised his head to take a look, but only saw a pair of shoes that were continuously growing bigger descending. You're the one who should die. Long Yu actually descended from the sky. With a loud bang, Long Yu's foot stepped on the unprepared Qin Tianke's head. The power contained in this foot definitely exceeded Long Yu's limit. Boom! Qin Tianke had no strength to resist. Being stepped on by Long Yu, his entire person fell to the ground. His neck was actually directly twisted by the huge force. He died with everlasting regret. It turned out that at the critical moment, just now, Long Yu felt that his Flash Wind Step had finally broken through to the peak realm. The peak realm of Flash Wind Step could create an afterimage on the spot, and then consecutively use Flash Wind Step 3 times to cross a distance of 10 feet. When Qin Tianke's fatal foot stomped down, Long Yu instantly used Flash Wind Steps, leaving behind an afterimage where he was standing. As for his body, he took 3 steps in the blink of an eye and arrived 10 meters above Qin Tianke's head. The terrifying force of falling from a high place, coupled with Long Yu's own strength, actually kicked Qin Tianke to death. That azure windscreen just now also didn't appear. It should only be formed when executing a movement technique. And facing this kick from Long Yu, Qin Tianke didn't have any time to react at all. However, when Qin Tianke fell to the ground dead, Long Yu also fell to the ground. Because although that kick killed Qin Tianke, the recoil force was too great, causing his leg to be broken once again. Of course, compared to losing his life, breaking a leg was nothing. Qin Tianke's proud figure fell to the ground with a loud bang. The 4 people nearby, who were originally expecting Long Yu to be trampled to death, all opened their mouths wide and stared with wide eyes. They couldn't believe what they saw. Qin Tianke, a 7th-level martial Dao Zhentian clan intersect disciple, was actually kicked to death by a kid who had just stepped into the 6th level of the martial Dao. Brother! Qin Rong was completely stunned. Her brother, who had been an expert since he was young, had actually died just like that. Long Yu endured the pain of his broken leg and barely stood up. He glanced at Qin Rong, and ignored her. Instead, he lowered his head and searched Qin Tiang's body for his battle weapon. The profound wind seal was in his hands. Junior sister Qin, this child is extremely cruel. He actually killed your brother. If we don't kill him, where's the justice in the world? At this moment, one of the other three quickly reacted, his eyes revealing a look of greed. Chapter 29. In this world where martial arts were respected, everyone focused on improving their own strength. As for right and wrong, how many people cared about it? When Long Yu defeated Qin Tianke and was seriously injured, the remaining three people's minds became active. These three people were all outer sect disciples of the Jintian clan. One was at the 6th stage of the martial path, while the other two were at the 5th stage. Although their cultivation was not high, their combined strength was still a very strong force. The originally weak Long Yu was still relatively weak, and the originally strong Qin Rong was now also weak. As the three people slowly approached Long Yu, Qin Rong was still in a daze. She still could not accept the fact that her brother had died in front of her. However, at this moment, a shout suddenly came from the direction of the Jintian clan. Stop! Immediately after, a middle-aged man in a purple robe flashed into the scene. With a casual wave of his hand, the surging waves of air forced the three people who wanted to attack Long Yu to take a few steps back. This middle-aged man had a firm expression on his face and a pair of upright eyes. Looking at the identity token on his waist, he was actually the enforcement elder of the Jintian clan. The enforcement elder was considered a relatively important existence in the Jintian clan, specializing in dealing with disciples who violated the rules of the clan. Long Yu raised his head with difficulty. When he saw the arrival of the enforcement elder, he did not feel relieved. Instead, he became even more nervous. This was because he did not know whether the enforcement elder was a friend or a foe. Elder Tan, you're here. Qin Rong who was lying limply on the side, could not help but show a trace of joy when she saw the arrival of the middle-aged man in a purple robe. Rong The middle-aged man in a purple robe nodded at Qin Rong. Then, with a look of pain on his face, he turned his head to look at Qin Tianke, who was lying on the ground, and then focused his gaze on Long Yu. Hearing the greeting between the middle-aged man and Qin Rong, Long Yu's heart sank. It seemed that this Elder Tan had come with ill intentions. Qin Tianke is the disciple that I, Tan Wuchuan, have just accepted. Elder Tan glanced at Long Yu and said indifferently, So, you want to avenge your disciple? Long Yu said calmly, racking his brains to think of countermeasures. However, no matter how he thought, he could not find any chance to escape in such a situation. This purple-robed middle-aged man, Tan Wuchuan, was the law enforcement elder of the Jintian clan. His cultivation had reached at least the 9th level of the martial Dao. He had even broken through that boundary and reached an even higher level. Long Yu's current realm was still too weak. He was unable to contend with true experts at all. If you've made a mistake, then you should be punished. However, if you haven't, I won't touch you. Tan Wuchuan said something that was beyond Long Yu's expectations. Then he closed his eyes. It seemed as if he was grieving over the death of his disciple. However, before he closed his eyes, a faint murderous intent flashed in his eyes, which was captured by Long Yu's sharp senses. This Tan Wuchuan is definitely not as impartial as he seems on the surface. Long Yu is on his guard. What happened? Who will tell us? Tan Wuchuan asked. Elder Tan, I'll talk. Qin Rong was the first to speak. She said anxiously, Elder Tan, early this morning, I invited 4 senior brothers to enter the soaring serpent abyss together. Coincidentally, we encountered a soaring serpent king. Soaring serpent king? Tan Wuchuan frowned slightly when he heard this. He nodded and said, Continue. When we encountered the soaring serpent king, my 4 senior brothers and I fought desperately. Because the soaring serpent king was too powerful, the 4 senior brothers sacrificed their lives. However, the soaring Serpent King also exhausted its strength. At this point, Qin Rong, Er's face revealed a vicious expression. She stared at Long Yu and said, "Just as I was about to kill the soaring Serpent King and avenge my senior brothers, the murderer suddenly appeared. Not only did he injure my leg, but he also stole the soaring Serpent King's inner core." Tan Wuchuan didn't say a word when he heard this. He seemed to be considering something. Long Yu watched coldly from the sidelines. He wanted to see what else Qin Rong could say. Qin Rong, but didn't stop. She continued in her sweet voice. "After stealing the inner core of the soaring Serpent King, the murderer ran all the way, but my brother finally caught up to him. My brother asked him a hand over the inner core, but not only did he not listen, he even used a trick to ambush my brother, causing his death." "Is this true?" Tan Wuchuan was shocked. "Yes, Elder Tan. This person is vicious and merciless. He killed a fellow disciple. This kind of evil person must not be allowed to live in this world," Qin Rong said viciously. "Next, I will ask you a few questions. Rong, answer them truthfully." Tan Wuchuan nodded. Then, as if he was enforcing the law impartially, he began to ask questions. "First, the 4 senior brothers who set off with you this morning were only at the 5th level of the martial path. Even if the 5 of you joined forces, you would not have been a match for the soaring Serpent King. How did you kill the soaring Serpent King?" The moment this question was asked, Qin Rong paused for a moment. However, she quickly recovered and said, "We relied on the spiky vines to exhaust the soaring Serpent King's energy and then killed it." Long Yu, who was standing to the side, laughed coldly. This woman really knew how to brag. Second, Tan Wuchuan didn't care about Long Yu. Instead, he continued to ask, "How did Tian-Ke arrive in time? Was it you who sent the signal?" Qin Rong didn't deny this point. She directly nodded. "Yes." Third, how did this person defeat Tian-Ke? As he asked this question, Tan Wuchuan's gaze focused on Long Yu. A fierce look flashed across his eyes. "He used a sinister method to splash the soaring Serpent King's bodily fluids on my brother, causing him to be ambushed by the spiky vines and exhaust his energy. In the end, Elder Tan should have seen it as well. My brother was cruelly kicked to death by him." As Qin Rong said this, she glared fiercely at Long Yu. "What about the 3 of you? Is what Rong said true?" After hearing this, Tan Wuchuan shifted his gaze to the 3 outer sect disciples next to him. When the 3 heard this, they secretly thought that since the dead Qin Tian-Ke was this elder's disciple, then this elder must want to get rid of Long Yu as soon as possible, right? We didn't participate in what happened before, so we're not very clear. However, Senior Brother Qin was indeed killed by this person using despicable methods. The 3 of them said in unison. As expected, Tan Wuchuan snorted coldly and glanced at Long Yu. "Long Yu, what else do you have to say now?" Long Yu. It was only now that Qin Rong, and the 3 of them realized Long Yu's identity. He was actually the new disciple who had been hit by Feng Yun's palm and sent Feng Yun flying. The 4 of them were shocked. This Long Yu had just barely defeated Feng Kong half a month ago. Now he could even kill Qin Tian-Ke, who was at the 7th stage of the martial path. Wasn't this improvement too fast? To advance from the 5th stage to the 6th stage of the martial path, an ordinary martial cultivator would need at least 3 to 4 months. Furthermore, this Long Yu's combat strength seemed to be a level higher than that of an ordinary martial cultivator. Could this person be a freak? In contrast to the shock of Qin Rong, and the others, Long Yu had a calm expression. Elder Tan has his own plans. Why ask me? Furthermore, the traces of the battle with the soaring Serpent King are still there. Elder Tan, you will know the truth once you go and take a look. As for the actual situation, I will naturally investigate it myself. Tan Wuchuan said indifferently, but for now, you should make a trip to the law enforcement hall with me. His words did not give Long Yu any chance to explain at all. This made Long Yu frown slightly. There was some doubt in his heart. If Tan Wuchuan wanted to kill him, then why did he appear just now and stopped the 3 outer sect disciples from besieging him. But if Tan Wuchuan was really a person who enforced the law impartially, then it was impossible that he did not give him a chance to explain and directly brought him back to the law enforcement hall. This Tan Wuchuan's behavior was really strange. Long Yu thought about it, and could not help but guess that Tan Wuchuan wanted to convict him while also trying to show that he was fair to someone else. At this moment, an arrogant man's laughter suddenly came from the forest beside them. Ha ha! Accompanied by this laughter, a mysterious man in black, tight-fitting clothes appeared. His handsome face had an insolent smile as he stepped forward domineeringly. It looked like he had only taken 2 or 3 steps, but in the next moment, he had already arrived in front of Tan Wuchuan. Long Yu raised his head and saw that this mysterious man in black was about 20 years old. His eyes were deep and extremely charming. Although this mysterious young man looked to be about the same age as Qin Tianke, his cultivation had reached an unfathomable level. In fact, Long Yu even felt that he was not inferior to Tan Wuchuan. When this mysterious man appeared amidst the laughter, Tan Wuchuan's expression finally changed. "Why did you come out?" Tan Wuchuan's tone was slightly sullen, as if he disliked this person for being a busybody. "Brother Long Yu and I hit it off, so I want to take him away." The young man in black stood with his hands behind his back and smiled at Long Yu. "I saw what happened today, so there is no need to trouble Elder Tan to investigate further. This matter is under the jurisdiction of the law enforcement hall." Tan Wuchuan laughed coldly. "Even if it is you, you should think about the consequences if you want to intervene. Just now, Qin Rong has already explained the matter in detail. As for the truth, I will naturally investigate it." "Is that so?" The mysterious man laughed arrogantly. He took a step forward and pressed Tan Wuchuan. "Elder Tan, Qin Tianke is your disciple. It is reasonable for you to want to avenge him. Why did you have to put on a show for me just now? However, with me here today, I am afraid that it will not be so easy for you, Elder Tan, to invert right and wrong." When these words came out, Tan Wuchuan's expression immediately changed. Beside him, Long Yu finally understood. Indeed, this mysterious man had followed him from the beginning and understood the whole matter from beginning to end. The reason why Tan Wuchuan was acting strange was because he wanted to put on a show for this mysterious man. However, who was this mysterious man? He did not look very old. How could he make Tan Wuchuan, a law enforcement elder, fear him? Long Yu could not help but guess the identity of this mysterious young man. Was he Elder Yu's man? Or was he Elder Bai and Elder Hei's man? Chapter 30. While Long Yu was guessing, the purple-robed Tan Wuchuan's face was already livid. The mysterious young man's words were exactly what he wanted, and he was extremely unhappy. "Don't go too far. When did I, Tan Wuchuan, want to confuse right and wrong?" Tan Wuchuan snorted angrily, as if the man in front of him had insulted him. "Ha!" The mysterious young man laughed. "Elder Tan, we all know what's going on. Why beat around the bush? I won't say anything more. I'm leaving." After saying this, the mysterious youth's footsteps moved, and a black shadow flashed by. Long Yu felt as if he was being carried away by the mysterious youth, and his speed was more than 3 to 4 times faster than when he used Flash Wind Step. Tan Wuchuan didn't stop him and let the mysterious young man take Long Yu away. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. "Elder Tan, who is this person? Why is he so arrogant?" Seeing Long Yu being taken away, Qin Rong was unhappy and couldn't help but ask. The number 1 core disciple of the Jintian clan. Tan Wuchuan's tone was cold. He looked at Qin Tiang's body at his feet, and his eyes were filled with sorrow. "Since that person is involved, I can't help you anymore. Elder Tan, are we just going to let this matter go?" Qin Rong was unwilling, and a vicious look appeared in her eyes. "If we don't let it go, what else can we do?" Tan Wuchuan snorted coldly. At this moment, he no longer had a good impression of Qin Rong. "You still don't repent for what happened today? Forget it, forget it. For Tiang's sake, I won't make things difficult for you. Tomorrow morning, you can pack your bags and leave the Jintian clan." Tan Wuchuan had interfered in this matter because of Qin Tianke. He wanted to take revenge for Qin Tianke. But now that there was no hope of revenge, and Qin Tianke was dead, he naturally didn't have a good impression of the culprit, Qin Rong. He, Tan Wuchuan, was the law enforcement elder. So, he was naturally very clear about the whole matter. Qin Rong was stunned when she heard this. Elder Tan, she opened her eyes wide. She didn't expect Tan Wuchuan to be afraid of going against a core disciple. The number one core disciple was still a disciple of the Jintian clan. Tan Wuchuan was the law enforcement elder, but he was afraid of a Jintian clan disciple. Qin Renjitter couldn't understand this no matter how hard she tried. However, Tan Wuchuan obviously wouldn't explain too much to her. The four of you, no one is allowed to speak of what happened today, or else. An ominous glint flashed in Tan Wuchuan's eyes as he swept his gaze over Qin Rong, and the other three people. Disciple understands. Apart from Qin Rong, the other three people immediately answered in fear. They were afraid that Tan Wuchuan would kill them if they answered too late. If news of what had happened just now were to spread, it would obviously have a huge impact on Tan Wuchuan's reputation. Of course, the three of them wouldn't dare to spread the news recklessly. Remember your words. Killing intent flashed in Tan Wuchuan's eyes. He then lowered his head and glanced at Qin Tiang's corpse. His killing intent didn't decrease, but increased instead. Obviously, he didn't plan on giving up on Qin Tiang's revenge. He just needed to endure it for the time being. He picked up Qin Tiang's corpse and walked step by step toward the Jintian clan. His purple robe fluttered in the wind, and in just a moment, he disappeared from where he was. In the soaring serpent abyss, a soul-stirring battle finally came to an end. Long Yu was taken away by the mysterious young man. After traveling as fast as lightning, they soon returned to the bottom of the suppression canyon. Long Yu, I will send you here. I have already informed the two elders, and they will come to pick you up. The mysterious young man looked at Long Yu with admiration in his eyes and said encouragingly, "Your combat talent is very high. Perhaps in the near future, you will become a formidable opponent of mine. Senior is too kind. Thank you for today, Senior." Long Yu endured the pain from his broken leg and cupped his fists. "Hey, don't call me Senior. Do I look very old?" The mysterious young man had a serious expression. "I am the same as you, a disciple of the Jintian clan. However, I'm only a core disciple. You can call me Senior Brother." Core disciple. Upon hearing that, Long Yu was stunned. This mysterious young man was actually a core disciple of the Jintian clan. He had thought that he was also an elder. This guy, with just his identity as a core disciple, was able to suppress Tan Wuchuan. One could see how terrifying his strength was. In comparison, Feng Yun, who was also a core disciple, was much weaker. In the heavenly mandate continent, strength determined everything. Even if this mysterious young man was only a core disciple, as long as he was stronger than Tan Wuchuan could not do anything to him. This was the benefit of having great strength. If not for this, Long Yu would not have been able to escape so easily today. But now, not only had he stepped in the sixth tier of a martial path and returned safely, he had also obtained Qin Tiang's weapon, the Mystic Wind Seal. This trip to the soaring serpent abyss was a huge harvest. All of this was thanks to this core disciple in front of him, the mysterious young man. "Senior Brother, please tell me your name. I will definitely thank you in the future." Long Yu immediately said, "Try and get the other party's name." "Haha, it's just a name. It's not worth mentioning. I won't say much. I'll be leaving first. See you later." The young man laughed heartily, then turned around and disappeared with a single step. Long Yu saw him leave just like that, and could not help but scratch his head. What was this guy's name? Why did he suddenly appear to help him? If it was just because he saw that he had great potential, Long Yu would definitely not believe it. Could it be related to Feng Yun? At the core disciple level, Long Yu had only interacted with Feng Yun. Could it be that this mysterious young man had a grudge with Feng Yun, so he paid special attention to him and appeared to help him? Or Is it related to my father that I have never met? Long Yu thought about it, but he could not guess the truth. Soon, a beautiful girl in a blue shirt appeared on the mountain road leading to the top of the canyon. It was Liao Lele. Long Yu, what happened to you? You only went out for an afternoon, and your leg is broken again? Liao Lele was called down by Old Bai, and when she saw Long Yu half kneeling on the ground, how could she not know what had happened? She quickly ran over with a face full of disdain. You're not strong, and you only know how to fight and kill. Looks like it will take another half a month for your leg to recover. Half a month it is. I can go to the royal ancient ginseng forest by then. Long Yu argued. What's more, others are already bullying me. Should I take the initiative to admit defeat and be bullied by them? TSK, hurry up and go back with me. Liao Lele rolled her eyes, helped him up, and walked step by step towards the top of the mountain. Although Liao Lele didn't seem to like Long Yu very much, but from this delicate girl, Long Yu could feel a kind of warmth that he hadn't felt for a long time. It made him feel as if he was being cared for, especially when he came back injured this time. It was Liao Lele who came to pick him up, subconsciously narrowing the distance between the two. 10 days later, at the peak of the Suppression Canyon, as Long Yu's leg was an injury to his tendons and bones, it healed relatively quickly. Old Bai gave him a high-grade pill, which allowed him to fully recover in 10 days. However, this time, Old Bai made it clear that if he was seriously injured again, there would be no more healing pills, and he had to wait for a few months to recover, just like the wind and clouds. Towards this, although Long Yu felt a little apologetic, if he was given another chance to choose again, he would still do the same thing. Exchanging a leg for his opponent's life, it was worth it. Furthermore, he even obtained a combat weapon, the Mystic Wind Seal. However, Old Bai said that the Mystic Wind Seal was not suitable for Long Yu, so he took it away, saying that he would exchange it for another combat weapon of the faction. However, in the past 10 days, Old Bai did not give him any news, which made Long Yu's heart itch. This morning, Long Yu could not wait to leave the bamboo hut and saw Old Bai sitting at the edge of the cliff, drinking tea leisurely. Old Bai. Long Yu took a step forward and asked, "Didn't you say that you would tell me the senior brother's identity when my leg is fully recovered? Do you really want to know his name?" Old Bai stroked his beard and chuckled. "Please tell me, elder." Long Yu cupped his fists and bowed. In the past 10 days, there were two things that had been bothering him. One was the Mystic Wind Seal that was taken away, and the other was the mysterious young man's identity as a core disciple. "Then I will tell you, don't regret it." Old Bai looked interested. He is the #1 core disciple of the Jintian clan, and also one of the top 9 young experts of the Tang Empire. His name is Bufang. The #1 core disciple of the Jintian clan, one of the top 9 young experts of the Tang Empire. Long Yu's expression changed slightly. He did not expect that the mysterious young man's identity was so shocking that he was ranked first in the entire Tang Empire. However, when he heard the name from Old Bai, he could not help but be startled. "No? Bufang, Bufang, Bufang," Old Bai explained. Long Yu was a little puzzled. Who gave him this name? No wonder the mysterious young man refused to tell him. How could a man not be able to do it? However, Bufang was still Bufang. Long Yu, I have to remind you that you must not mention this name in front of him. At most, you can call him Senior Brother Bu. Old Bai paused and said in a slightly serious tone, "Do you understand?" "Well, I understand." Long Yu seemed to have understood something. "Well, next try this combat weapon I just brought back for you, the Blizzard Boots." Old Bai nodded with satisfaction. He stretched out his hand, and a pair of snow-white boots appeared in front of Long Yu. Blizzard Boots? Long Yu's eyes lit up. Was this the combat weapon that Old Bai had promised to exchange for the Mystic Wind Seal? Combat weapons, like elixirs, are divided into lower, middle, and upper grades. However, the Jintian clan always rewards their inner disciples with lower-grade combat weapons. Old Man Bai said leisurely, "These Blizzard Boots are also low-ranked combat weapons, but they're the most precious low-ranked combat weapons. Try them, and you will understand everything." "Yes, thank you, Old Bai." Long Yu took the pair of snow-white boots and carefully observed them. The boots were completely snow-white, and they were completely made of ice crystals. Once he touched them, he could feel a burst of cold air. No wonder they were called the blizzard boots. Chapter 31. After obtaining the blizzard war boots, Long Yu couldn't wait to put them on. He wanted to try out their effects. Suddenly, a bone-chilling aura surrounded his feet, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. However, his eyes were filled with joy. This was because he could clearly feel that after wearing this pair of blizzard boots, the cold air contained in it could actually increase his speed. My flash wind step has reached the greater mastery level. Now that I have this pair of blizzard boots, I'm afraid my speed will be doubled. Long Yu thought to himself. Then, he turned into a gentle breeze and started using flash wind step on a mountain peak. Liao Lele was dazzled by Xiao Chen's extremely fast speed. She thought to herself, although this brat is a little stupid, always fighting head-on with others, his comprehension of martial techniques is too fast. Liao Lele had joined the sect 3 days earlier than Long Yu, but now, her cultivation was still at the 4th realm of the martial path. As for martial skills, she only chose Flash Wind Step later and had only reached the lesser mastery level. She was still a far cry from Long Yu. Every battle weapon is an existence that can bestow spirituality. While Long Yu was familiarizing himself with the blizzard boots, Elder Bai continued to explain leisurely. If you stay with this combat weapon for a long time, you'll be able to become compatible with it. The combat weapon's deeper power will be revealed, and it will even gain self-awareness. However, it is not easy to become compatible with a combat weapon. I can't teach you how to do it. You will have to figure it out yourself. Become compatible with a combat weapon? Long Yu was a little surprised. Every combat weapon can be endowed with spirituality and even have self-awareness. This gave him a shock. He thought that the combat weapon under his feet was just an ordinary weapon. He didn't expect the combat weapons of the Heavenly Mandate continent to be so extraordinary. However, Long Yu had never heard of this before. This meant that it would be difficult to become compatible with a combat weapon. At the very least, the high-rank combat weapon that Feng Chang'e had lent to Feng Yao, the ancient bronze sword, definitely did not have any spirituality. Let's not think too much about it for now. There are still 5 days before we head to the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest. In these 5 days, I will try to cultivate the demon vanquishing tyrant body. As for the wind flash step, there is no room for improvement for now, Long Yu thought to himself. He first spent a day familiarizing himself with the speed of the blizzard boots. Then he began to comprehend and cultivate the demon vanquishing tyrant body in the bamboo house. Aside from some of the geniuses of the Jintian clan, Gu Canlin would also run into the young geniuses of the Frost sect and the Thousand Thread sect. Among them was Feng Yao, an acquaintance of Long Yu's. At least I can't lose to Feng Yao, Long Yu thought to himself. The last time Feng Yao returned to the Feng clan and arranged for the servants to kill him, she was at the 7th level of the martial Dao. Furthermore, she had obtained Feng Chang'e's bronze ancient sword and was extremely powerful. Feng Chang'e's bronze ancient sword was a high-ranked combat weapon. It was much stronger than Qin Tiang's Dark Wind Seal. The realm of the martial Dao was not that easy to break through. However, the power that Feng Yao could display with the bronze ancient sword was definitely not on the same level as Qin Tiang. If Long Yu did not cultivate the demon vanquishing tyrant body to completion, he would definitely not be a match for Feng Yao. If he wanted to reach the initial success stage of the demon vanquishing tyrant body, he would have to use Xian Qi to temper his muscles and bones. If he wanted to reach the advanced success stage, he would have to use Xian Qi to temper his skin and flesh. These two processes were extremely painful. However, Long Yu was not afraid of the pain. As long as he could endure these 2 stages and reach the advanced success stage of the demon vanquishing tyrant body, his body's resistance to attacks would increase by several times. This sacrifice was worth it. Xian Qi to temper the muscles and bones. Long Yu sat on the bamboo bed in the bamboo house. The Xian Qi in his body flowed and seeped into his muscles and bones. Immediately, he felt a painful itch all over his body, causing him to clench his teeth. The pain in his muscles and bones was 100 times worse than the pain in his meridians. If he wanted to temper his muscles and bones, it would be impossible to do it without extraordinary willpower. And what Long Yu lacked the least was this kind of willpower. When Long Yu was cultivating, Liao Lele would come in from time to check on him. He could not help but worry when he saw the painful expression on Long Yu's face. If Old Bai had not told him that the cultivation of body-refining martial arts was extremely painful, Liao Lele would have thought that something had gone wrong with Long Yu's cultivation. But even so, Liao Lele could not help but feel a little distressed. "Come on," Liao Lele silently prayed for Long Yu in his heart. After 2 days, Long Yu finally got rid of the pain of tempering his muscles and bones. Under his indomitable willpower, the demon-vanquishing tyrant body had finally reached the initial success stage. The initial success stage of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body has increased my basic strength a lot, and the resistance of my muscles and bones has become extremely strong. A glint flashed in Long Yu's eyes. Attacks of the same strength can only injure my skin and flesh from now on. They will not be able to destroy my muscles and bones. If he cultivated the demon-vanquishing tyrant body to the large success stage, even his skin and flesh would be like diamond. Attacks below the 5th level of the martial Dao would be like tickles to him. In the description of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body, Long Yu also knew that the large success stage of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body could condense the demon-vanquishing Vajra shield, which had extremely strong defensive capabilities. Even if he had not reached the 7th level of the martial Dao, he could release his Xian Qi and condense the demon-vanquishing Vajra shield on the surface of his body. It was enough to withstand the impact of all martial skills of the same strength. I must reach the large success stage of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body. Long Yu's eyes were filled with determination. He did not rest at all, and once again entered into cultivation. This time, the Xian Qi tempered his skin and flesh. It was just the beginning of cultivation, but his skin seemed to have cracked open. From the cracks of his skin, blood constantly seeped out. It was as if someone had cut him hundreds of times with a knife. The pain that Long Yu endured could be imagined. However, Long Yu gritted his teeth and endured the pain of his skin tearing apart. This was a painful process of shedding his skin and changing his flesh. But once he endured it, Long Yu would be like a silkworm turning into a butterfly. He would have brand new skin and flesh that was enough to resist blades. For an entire 3 days and 3 nights, Long Yu spent them in pain. However, after 3 days, his skin and flesh finally transformed. Under the bamboo bed, there was a layer of broken skin and old flesh. As for Long Yu's newly grown skin and flesh tempered by Xian Qi, it was as soft and tough as a baby's skin. It was as if it was covered with a layer of Xian Qi, making it extremely tough. At the large success stage of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body, the meridians, muscles, bones, and flesh have all been tempered by Xian Qi. My entire body is invulnerable. If you want to hurt me, you have to at least have a strength stronger than me. Not only that, the large success stage of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body could also condense the demon-vanquishing Vajra barrier on the surface of his body, instantly increasing his defensive power. Even if he were to forcefully resist Qin Tiang's mysterious wind break martial skill, or the wind blades released by the mysterious wind seal, it would be more than enough to rely on the demon-vanquishing Vajra barrier. Of course, maintaining the demon-vanquishing Vajra barrier consumed a lot of profound energy. Long Yu would only use it at a critical moment. He opened his eyes, got off the bamboo bed, and stood up. Finally, he revealed a satisfied expression. If the current him were to encounter a 7th-level martial Dao expert like Qin Tianke again, it wouldn't be so difficult for him to fight. At the very least, he wouldn't suffer such heavy injuries. After the large success stage of the demon-vanquishing tyrant body, the strength of his entire body had increased from the initial 35,000 jin to 42,000 jin. The increase was very considerable. Next, I will head to the royal ancient ginseng forest and strive to obtain a high-grade ancient ginseng. This way, I should be able to strive to step into the 7th level of the martial Tao and release Xian Shi. Long Yu thought to himself, if he seized this opportunity to enter the royal ancient ginseng forest, his strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. At this moment, the selected members of the Jintian clan who had been selected to enter the royal ancient ginseng forest were gathered at the Heaven Suppression Canyon. There was a total of 15 people, all of whom had reached the 6th level of the martial Tao before the age of 20. Feng Qianqian, that trash from your Feng clan, is also going to the royal ancient ginseng forest. Why isn't he here yet? Among the crowd, a burly man with a sharp and angular face said impatiently, "Does he think he's so great that he wants all 15 of us to wait for him?" This burly man was Tan Yu's elder brother, Tan Jian. Tan Jian was currently in the limelight of the Jintian clan. Just a few days ago, he had successfully broken through to the 8th level of the martial Tao and became the strongest among the inner disciples. At this moment, Tan Jian was only 2 months away from turning 20. It was obvious that his future was limitless. It was very likely that he would break through the 9th level of the martial Tao and step into another level. Such an achievement was even more illustrious than Feng Yan. Among the 15 people from the Jintian clan who were going to the royal ancient ginseng forest, Tan Jian was the strongest. The one talking to Tan Jian was a green-clothed girl who looked to be only 18 years old. Her face was cold and arrogant. From her appearance, it could be seen that she looked similar to Feng Yang and Feng Yan. It was obvious that she was also from the Feng clan of the Jade Pass City. Feng Qianqian was Feng Yang's younger sister. Although she was younger than Feng Yang, her cultivation was higher than his, reaching the 7th level of the martial Tao. She was also an inner disciple of the Jintian clan. Hearing Tan Jian's impatient words, Feng Qianqian coldly snorted, "Don't associate that trash Long Yu with our Feng clan. As for why he's not here yet, you can ask Elder Yu yourself." At the front of the 15 people, a black-robed old man was resting with his eyes closed. It was Elder Yu, the guard of the martial skill pavilion. However, at this moment, Elder Yu did not participate in the discussion of the crowd. Instead, he was silent, and no one knew what he was thinking. As the strongest inner disciple, Tan Jian naturally had the qualifications to speak to Elder Yu. "Elder Yu, why isn't that Long Yu here yet? If he delays our journey to the ancient Ginseng city, what punishment should we receive?" Tan Jian looked at Elder Yu and asked in a sharp voice, "Isn't he here now?" Elder Yu said faintly, following which, everyone turned around and saw a young man in a blue robe walking towards the entrance of the Heaven Suppression Canyon. That young man was Long Yu. This time, he was representing the Jintian clan, so he wore the outer disciple robe of the Jintian clan. When Long Yu appeared in front of the crowd, many people's eyes flashed with sharpness. Chapter 32. Long Yu's perception of killing intent was extremely sensitive. He saw Feng Qianqian and Tan Jian's figures and immediately recognized them. So it's Feng Qianqian and Tan Jian. These two actually want to go as well, without batting an eyelid. Long Yu walked over step by step. "Trash, you injure my elder brother Feng Yang. I will definitely make you look good on this trip to the Imperial Ancient Ginseng Forest." Feng Qianqian sneered and threatened Long Yu. "Even today, you still call me trash. In that case, your brother Feng Yang can't even beat me. Isn't he even more trash than me?" Long Yu did not want to be outdone and retaliated. "Your sharp tongue can't save you. I hope your strength is as tough as your mouth." Feng Qianqian sneered and turned to leave. She disdained to argue with Long Yu. She was at the 7th level of the martial Tao. How could a mere trash like Long Yu have the qualifications to talk to her? However, she did not know that half a month ago, Long Yu had already killed Qin Tianke, who was also at the 7th level of the martial Tao. Compared to Feng Qianqian, Tan Jian was much more mature. This sturdy man who had already stepped into the 8th level of the martial Tao did not say a word. He only looked at Long Yu and there was a substantial killing intent enveloping him. Those who were truly confident would not even bother to say anything. Just the look in their eyes was enough to give people a warning. Long Yu, this trash, dared to injure Tan Yu and break one of Tan Yu's legs. How could Tan Jian, as his brother, let him off? There was no need to think too much. During the trip to the ancient ginseng forest, Tan Jian would definitely make a move against Long Yu. Unfortunately, facing Tan Jian's gaze that was filled with killing intent, Long Yu was completely unmoved. How many times had Long Yu seen a murderous gaze? This Tan Jian was still too inexperienced. Long Yu did not pay attention to the other party and directly stepped into the crowd, preparing to set off. As they were about to head to the imperial ancient ginseng forest, the Jintian clan disciples were all very excited, so much so that they did not pay attention to the brief conflict between Long Yu, Feng Chanqian, and Tan Jian. There were 15 people in the crowd, including Long Yu and Elder Yu. There were a total of 17 people. They were all the members of the Jintian clan who were going to the imperial ancient ginseng forest. Every one of them was equipped with a horse so that they could travel quickly. If one could reach the legendary realm of martial arts, one would be able to become one with the world and fly in the air. It's a pity that there are only a handful of such people in the Great Tang Empire. Elder Yu looked into the distance and mounted his fierce horse. It seemed as if he had said it unintentionally, but in reality, he had deliberately said this sentence, which made the 16 people behind him slightly understand at the same time. Unity of heaven and man, flying through the air. How powerful was that martial arts realm? Even to an expert like Elder Yu, it seemed to be out of reach. I'm already old, and my martial arts realm has stagnated. But for all of you, the martial arts still have endless possibilities. Elder Yu did not even turn his head, but his words were clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. The imperial ancient ginseng forest is only a small stop on the path of martial arts. If you encounter any danger in it, you must put your own life first. Do you understand? Understood. Everyone nodded their heads. On the path of martial arts, strength was revered, but strength was based on the foundation of life. Without life, what was there to talk about martial arts? What was there to talk about strength? Everyone understood this logic. But when faced with some great opportunities on the path of martial arts, no one could maintain absolute calmness. At that time, for the sake of strength, everyone would choose to put their lives on the line. Everyone mounted their fierce horses and set off. The imperial ancient ginseng forest was located far away from the Jintian clan's North Pole. Even by horse, it would take 10 days to reach. 20 days to and fro, plus 10 days in the ancient ginseng forest. This trip to the imperial ancient ginseng forest had taken a total of 1 month. By the time we returned from the ancient ginseng forest, the Feng clan gathering should be about to begin. Long Yu thought to himself as he secretly observed the Jintian clan disciples who were traveling with him. Other than himself, the other 15 people were all inner disciples. Their strength ranged from the 6th to the 7th rank of the martial path. Among them, Tan Jian had even reached the 8th rank of the martial path. Logically speaking, with Tan Jian's strength, he should have already tried to become a core disciple, but he didn't do so. In the Jintian clan, there were a total of 108 core disciples. If one wanted to be promoted from an inner disciple to a core disciple, he had to challenge one of the core disciples, and if he succeeded, he would be able to replace the core disciple. But maybe Tan Jian wanted to wait until he returned from the imperial ancient ginseng forest, and when his strength increased again, he would be able to obtain a higher ranking in one go. After all, the opportunity to challenge a core disciple was only available once every 6 months. In comparison, it's much easier to become an inner disciple. Long Yu thought to himself, as long as he reached the 6th rank of the martial path and participated in the elder's examination, he would be able to become an inner disciple of the Jintian clan. After becoming an inner disciple, the sect would reward him with a low-ranked combat weapon to increase his strength. But since Long Yu had the Blizzard War boots, there wasn't much difference between him and an inner disciple. This time, There weren't any core disciples among the 16 people who went to the imperial ancient ginseng forest from the Jintian clan. It wasn't that the core disciples weren't strong, but that they were all over the age of 20 and no longer qualified to enter the imperial ancient ginseng forest. I heard that there's an extremely talented core disciple from the Thousand Thread sect participating this time. I wonder how strong he is, and how does he compare to Tanjian? Long Yu thought to himself, looking forward to it. As long as he could reach the 7th rank of the martial path, he wouldn't be helpless against an expert of the 8th rank of the martial path like Tanjian. And the opportunity to reach the 7th rank of the martial path lay in the imperial ancient ginseng forest. As long as he could gather a few ancient ginseng and absorb the heaven and earth spiritual qi, it wouldn't be difficult for him to reach the 7th rank of the martial path. The group galloped on their horses. The field was vast, the clouds were blue, and the sky was blue. Since Long Yu had nothing better to do, he started to circulate the heaven-suppressing art. The heaven-suppressing art contained the comprehension of the laws of heaven and earth of the senior, who created the cultivation technique. If Long Yu could reach the next level, he would be able to sense the essence of the heaven-suppressing art like Elder Yu had said, and his battle prowess would increase. It was a pity that, after 10 days, Long Yu didn't make much progress. His comprehension of the heaven-suppressing art had only increased a little. It seems like it's still difficult to comprehend the heaven-suppressing art. No wonder all the disciples of the Jintian clan who can comprehend the heaven-suppressing art became core disciples. Long Yu sighed inwardly. However, he wasn't discouraged. After all, he had only stepped into the martial path for a short period of time. As long as he had enough time, he believed that he wouldn't lose to anyone. 10 days later, an ancient city built on a mountain appeared before everyone's eyes. The city of ancient ginseng was built by the royal family of the Great Tang Empire. The people who live in the city are all residents of the ancient ginseng forest who work for the royal family. When they arrived outside the city of ancient ginseng, Elder Yu explained to everyone. Long Yu raised his head and looked at the city of ancient ginseng. This city was much smaller than the Jade Pass city, but the city walls were much thicker. It seemed like it was specially built to protect the ancient ginseng forest. Over the years, when the various sects and royal families wanted to enter the ancient ginseng forest, they would stop at the city of ancient ginseng. The gates of the city of ancient ginseng were tightly shut. Elder Yu rode his horse forward and shouted, "I, Yu Shuiyun of the Jintian clan, have arrived with the disciples of the sect." With a loud bang, the huge city gates descended and stopped above the moat, allowing them to pass. "Let's go." Elder Yu turned around and led everyone into the city of ancient ginseng. After entering the city, the first thing that Long Yu saw was a wide street made of ancient bricks that led to the mountain behind the city. In the middle of the street, there was a black figure standing there. When Long Yu saw it, he was immediately stunned. That black figure was too strange. Although it looked like a beautiful woman with a graceful figure, Long Yu was sure that it was definitely not a person, but an existence that looked like a human shadow. However, the fact that the black shadow was able to stand up and block the path of the heaven-suppressing sect's people was inconceivable. It's someone from the Thousand Thread sect. Among the Jintian clan, people couldn't help but whisper, "Thousand Thread sect?" When Long Yu heard this, he frowned. What was the background of this Thousand Thread sect? Why did it look like a shadow that was standing up? Just as everyone's mind was racing, the black shadow that stood up suddenly spoke. It was a clear and pleasant voice, but with a hint of disdain. "You Jintian clan disciples don't seem to be much. You look even worse than the Ice sect." These words came from a black figure. It was really strange. When they heard the words, the Jintian clan members were unhappy. What did it mean that the Jintian clan disciples weren't much this time? Worse than the Ice sect? Such obvious disdain caused most of the Jintian clan members to be filled with righteous indignation. Only Tanjian, with a calm expression, said indifferently, "Could it be that you are Princess Qianxi? At least you have some eyesight. All right, I have no interest in you, so I'll let you pass." The black figure smiled contemptuously. Then, it shattered in front of everyone and quickly turned into black smoke, disappearing as if it had never appeared. Princess Qianxi? Senior brother Tanjian. Who is that Princess Qianxi? A tall young man in the 7th stage of the martial path asked Tanjian with a frown from the Jintian clan. Princess Qianxi is the daughter of the sect leader of the Thousand Thread sect. She is also the only core disciple of the Thousand Thread sect who entered the ancient ginseng forest this time. I'm afraid her strength is even stronger than mine. If you meet her in the ancient ginseng forest, you must be careful. That woman is vicious and merciless. Don't fight her head-on, Tanjian said in a deep voice. When the Jintian clan members heard this, they all nodded their heads. Their hearts were covered with a layer of shadow. They didn't expect that the experts of the Thousand Thread sect would give them a head-on warning as soon as they arrived at the ancient ginseng city. That kind of obvious disdain made them, the so-called geniuses, feel embarrassed. On the other hand, Long Yu didn't pay much attention to this matter. He was just a little curious about Princess Qianxi. What kind of mental cultivation method and martial skill did the Thousand Thread sect cultivate? How could they control a humanoid shadow? Since the humanoid shadow could speak, it could naturally be used in battle. Facing such a strange opponent, Long Yu had a premonition that this trip to the ancient ginseng forest would be extremely difficult. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.